board members have received a copy of the agenda, staff report, and recommendations. Copies of those are available in the trays over here on my left by the door. The members of this board are citizens of the city and appointed by the City Council. The board members are volunteers and receive no compensation for their public service. We're going to have 6 members of the board here today. I'm going to start on my left. Jake Christensen will be here in about 15 to 20 minutes. Next to him will be Mel Pins. Next to him is Linda Westergaard. On my right, Brooke Rosenberg will be absent, but next to him will be Cindy Smith. Next to her is Cherie Mortiz. My name is Bill Gray. Representing City Legal today on my left is Michael Kelly. Representing City staff, we have BERT DROST, City Planner, Eric Lundy, City Planner, and SUANNE Donovan, the Zoning Enforcement Officer. The board is required to base its decision in each case upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the applicant. The law applicable to each case is identified in the written staff report. If the facts, as determined by the board, demonstrate that the criteria established by law for granting the relief have been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the relief. All speakers are requested to focus their comments upon those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law have been satisfied. Each appeal will be announced in order, and the staff will present a brief explanation of the appeal. Any written comments received by the staff prior to the hearing will be distributed to the board or otherwise identified. All speakers are requested to speak from the podium over here on my right and to begin the presentation by giving both their name and address. The applicant or representative of the applicant is allowed to speak first and will be allowed 10 minutes to present their appeal. Anyone else present in support of the appeal will then be allowed 5 minutes each to present his or her comments. Anyone present in opposition to the appeal will then be allowed 5 minutes each to present his or her comments. The applicant then will be allowed 3 minutes for rebuttal or other closing comments. The meeting will then be closed to public comment, and the board will deliberate the request and make a decision. If your appeal is approved, we ask that you wait until tomorrow to go to the Permit and Development Center to apply for any building permits. Items that are listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the board requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and separately considered under the public hearing agenda. The decisions of this board can only be appealed to the Polk County District Court. If you believe you have been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the district court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the City Council to change those regulations. All material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation will become a permanent part of the record and will not be returned. If you have cell phones on out there, we ask you to turn them off or at least put them on vibrate because they can be very disruptive to the process we have here. If we need to take a short break, we'll be taking one around the 3 or 3:30 time frame. We have one item that may want to be moved up to the consent.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, BERT DROST, planner for the City of Des Moines. Item number 8 is an appeal for a variance to the front yard setback for a 8 foot by 10 foot guardhouse structure that would be within 12.5 feet of the south front property line. We've recommended approval. We haven't had any objections, so if the board is comfortable, this could be moved to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, just brief question, Bert. Would the guardhouse still kind of appear to be within the boundaries of the property or behind the fence?
Behind the fence.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It actually is there already.
Okay.
Is there anybody here in the audience that's here to speak against item 8? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to move that to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to move the item 8, variance at 4720 Southwest 26th Street, to the consent agenda for approval as presented.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, on the consent agenda, as I spoke earlier, these are items that will not be individually discussed, and we're going to vote on them as one block. So I'm going to read those off. Item 1 is a variance and exception at 5815 Southwest 5th. Item 2 is an exception at 1230 6th Avenue. Item 3 is a variance at 3617 Southeast 14th Street. And item 8 is the variance at 4720 Southwest 25th Street. Is there anybody here to speak in opposition on any of those items I just read off? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the variances and exceptions requested in items 1, 2, 3, and 8, subject to the staff recommendations as presented.
Got a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carry 5-0. So if you're here to represent 1, 2, 3, or 8, they have been approved. You're welcome to sit and watch your government at work, or or you can call it a day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
As we didn't get any further notices. We did get one card from the Southwest Hills after the hearing from George Davis, the chair of the Southwestern Hills, and it was in opposition, but that should be included in there.
Okay.
It came in the mail following the hearing. The property is located at the southwest corner of Summit Vista Drive and southwest 28th Street. And it's hard to see because of all the foliage in the aerial, but there's a gold boundary drawn around the property. Since the hearing previously, the appellant has revised their design slightly to minimize the appearance of the addition to the west from the west elevation. They've dropped it from a 612 pitch, which really took the top of the gable to the top of the existing home's ridge line. And then they reduced that to a 412 pitch, which is what you see in the representation there. So they have indicated they essentially aren't increasing the footprint of the deck itself. The overhangs will take it beyond that footprint, but if you look in our zoning ordinance, we allow 2 feet of overhang to encroach into a setback. However, they still are not able to encroach into 5 feet of a public utility easement that's in place. So overhang or not, no portion of this can come any closer than 5 feet from that perspective. So, and they're not proposing to do such. Staff is recommending approval subject to any addition being done in conformance with a permit issued by the Permit and Development Center, and design and materials in substantial compliance with the design elevation you see here on the overhead, including the 412 pitch, matching asphalt roof shingles, and compatible horizontal clapboard siding. Any questions?
Do you have the consent map?
Yes. I think I showed that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
See it again.
I was busy looking at something else.
Mel?
And Eric, in your, in their construction drawing there, their concept drawing, the upper right diagram kind of shows a site plan.
Yeah.
And while I can't quite read if those are just dimensional marks, does it kind of show where they believe the
That's the
right-of-way is?
That's the foundation footprint.
Right, okay.
System. This shows the actual roof detail. So you see the
Okay.
center ridge of the gable, and then
Would they still leave 5 foot plus for
yeah,
that
actually, the way
right-of-way?
we look at it, it'll probably be 7.
7, okay.
I would say the appeal was noticed for 5, so if you leave it at 5, that gives them a little bit of leeway. But however, no portion of any overhang should
Okay,
get into that 5. So
okay. But you don't have any other plan views that show those general dimensions of how it will lay out with the property line? They didn't provide anything like that?
they didn't provide us with anything that showed it to the property.
Okay.
I mean, we have like a general sketch that came in originally. Kind of, and it's truly a sketch.
So it's not to scale per se?
No.
Okay.
Well, you know, the base of it is to scale, but what was drawn on it was not, probably. A lot of times that just gets discussed.
Yeah, that's,
over the counter.
that's fine if
and drawn up,
if
so-
there's nothing they directly have. That's always helpful though when an applicant
And
kind of
the other
has.
thing is what I can tell you is
Okay.
this field view that we have, the footprints that you see, like the rectangle here,
Sure.
based on aerial.
Sure,
So that probably includes overhangs.
sure.
And so a lot of times if you scaled that distance, you're actually scaling from the overhang, not
Right.
the actual building wall.
Right.
So.
And I know these are
This is
approximations.
representational here.
Right,
And that was the original submittal. They thought they would have 8. I would say now it's down to 7. They asked, the appeal, they made it 5,
okay.
thinking that the overhang counted in that. But my understanding is they're not really actually revising it from what they're tearing off in terms of how close it'll come to the adjoining property lines.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, I have a question. I always find it important as to what the neighbors around there have to say. I see 2 cards that are in opposition. Well, kind of in.
Those were in opposition before the last hearing too,
Well,
so.
what about these that are in favor of it? Are those on, I didn't see that on your consent map.
There was one in favor, but and the other thing is we had to revise the notice for the fence that was existing. We were cleaning up that appeal. So if you see this on the diagram here, and that really wasn't in question after the last hearing. I should have brought that up, I apologize. So there was a fence done a couple years ago that was actually built projecting out into that site, required front yard setback on the north. And so
Yeah, so that don't count.
that really wasn't at issue at the last meeting. But what happened was that once we inspected, or did a visual of the site after the original appeal came in, we noticed that fence and then we looked into it, and there was still time to get another notice out before the hearing last time. So there's, on the cards, some of them say REV, and that's the revised notice. So some people sent in cards twice, basically.
Yeah, I'm kind of matching up that person's 4120 looks like they're in favor.
Right, and one of them might be the subject property owner. So this one to the south was in favor, I believe they sent in.
Okay, that's the
Yeah,
subject.
I believe that they sent in 2 cards, and then the subject property probably sent in 2 cards.
It looks like there's another one too.
What's the name on it?
Well, I can't really read it, but it's 4121 Southwest.
That would be this property right here. Or on this side, maybe? And that's in favor?
Yeah, it says, thanks for the update and
Okay.
informing. And she has I am, or they have I am.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to,
And it matches up with Kamamura? Does it look like Kamamura?
does it look like Kamara? Maybe?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I don't have anything to color it, but that would be green
Yeah,
then?
okay. So,
They're on the southeast corner of the cul-de-sac or the east there. Right.
and this are pictures from somebody that sent in that's opposing it,
Yes.
you think?
Well, initially, at the last hearing, they opposed it. I think that was,
Were these pictures?
those are the
part of that?
neighbors that they worked with between then and now.
But were these
go-
available the first time,
And I-
last
Yes.
month? Okay. all right.
Yeah, okay, that's okay. Okay, get it?
And then I have photos of the property if you need to see those.
Yeah.
This is the actual house from the front side, looking to the northwest from the cul-de-sac. This is looking at it from the Summit Vista, looking south. You can see the fence, how it projects out. The current addition that they'll remove is in this area right here. And it's more of like what I would call a pergola, or probably not
Pergola.
something we actually required a permit for, but it's,
And you wouldn't
but
now?
then they put something on top of that to cover it, and then it's something that requires a permit, and I don't think
Oh.
structurally it's probably,
Well, I've been thinking about building a pergola on my deck, so will I not need a permit if it's not
I
covered?
don't think Yeah, if it's not covered, I believe.
Oops, I'm on the record.
You can check in with the permit center if you want to be sure.
I will be sure to do that. Thank you.
I mean, it's not, and I wasn't here last month, so I apologize.
No,
but-
this is fine.
But it's not much different than what's there now.
Well, it'll be a full roof that incorporates,
Right.
ties into the roof of the house.
Now you've
and-
got kind
yeah.
of a roof and a,
And that's why that, when you get back to that design, you can see how it'll have a gabled
yeah.
end, where right now it's a more of a flat projection.
Right.
Yeah.
So Eric, Eric, will the new gabled roof, will that exceed the square footage of the roof that's there now?
Probably just because it has an overhang.
Okay.
So I would say a little bit, yes.
A little bit, but not,
But because right now everything, you see these supports right
right?
here. Everything's kind of right to the edge of that. Now the supports will be somewhat under the roof
Okay.
overhang. But the footprint of the deck is and everything probably, they've indicated that's remaining the same essentially.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Michael Larson, 4116 Southwest 28th Street. And basically, we're just trying to tear down the existing structure wasn't built to code, and it's ready to fall over, and put an actual roof that matches our roof. And yeah, that's basically all we're trying to do.
Did you get any resolution with your neighbor at all?
Yeah, we met, they came over, I stood up on the roof and showed them where it'd be and did the whole thing. And as long as we went to the 412, they seemed all right with it.
Good.
So,
Like to see progress that way.
yep.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition?
Not opposition, but I'd like to say something.
You sure can. Anybody that spends the time to come down here can say what they want.
Well, it was recommended. Neva Michael, 2812 Summit Vista.
Yes.
I'm a lot calmer this month. We did meet with Mike, and there was a little confusion as to what was proposed. Coming 2 feet out, I assumed it was on the base of the deck, and it's not. So he is building on the existing base already. Anyway, our one concern is, we'd mentioned that a survey should be done. And we don't think the fence is on the property line. And we did locate the property pin on the southwest corner of our property. And I spoke with Eric and told him that we measured, and of course, you know, we're not a surveyor, but it kind of looks like the fence at the end by our fence is at least a foot on our property.
Sounds like a second project you're going to be working on.
Well, you know, I'm just saying, you can't go by the fence to decide the amount
Right.
of your variance, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So I would strongly suggest, which I know Mike has said he's going to have his brother do it, so,
Oh, so you are going to have it surveyed?
well, yes, that's what he said. But I hadn't spoke with him and told him that we did find the property pin.
Okay.
So, but we couldn't find it on his property. But it's also right next to a electrical transformer. So that's why the fence was brought in, to avoid that.
Okay.
But it just throws all the, you know,
I'm glad you had the opportunity to talk, because it makes our job a lot easier, I can tell you that.
well, I would have liked to have done it beforehand. So Mike, in the future,
And we would too.
you know, yeah, it would have been a lot nicer, because there was a lot of, you know, stress and confusion. So,
So now that you're calmer, that's what we like to see.
yeah, well, I like to be that way too. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time to
Thank you,
come down
Neva.
here and talk. I don't think there's anybody else here to speak in opposition, so any last questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll close the public portion, go to board decision.
I'd like to move staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Motion carries 5-0. Boy, that was nice, neat, and clean. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for working it out. Item 5. It's carried over from the October meeting as well. It's an exception at 2510 East 37th Court.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item number 5 has two parts. One, they need an exception of 2 feet over the allowed 6-foot height for a solid fence within a side yard area, and then they also need an exception to have more paving within the front yard area than they are allowed. The subject property is a single-family residential property on the east side of East 37th Court. It's just south of East Sheridan Avenue. The sketch, you can see it's a fairly wide parcel. It was originally platted as 3 lots, so the house is in the middle. To the north of the house, they have an existing paved area here, and then they want to pave this area here where I believe it's already paved, where there's this cross hatching. And then they want to put in a 8-foot tall fence within this area. On residential properties, you're allowed to have an 8-foot tall fence within the rear yard, which would mean they could have 8 feet behind the house. So from this point at the end of my pen back, they can have 8 feet. But they're also wanting 8 feet within the side yard, which you're only allowed to have a 6-foot tall fence within the side yard. So they need the exception of 2 feet over the allowed 6 feet of height for the fence in this area here.
Before you take it away, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the rest of that area all concrete, the gray?
The gray area here is a concrete, yeah.
And that
And
other
they've
area?
now paved this area as well.
Okay, what about that little block in the back there?
That's their garage.
Oh, that's their garage, okay, got it.
And so here's a better aerial, so you can see what's going on. You can see where these vehicles are parked here. That's where the paving has taken place recently. So you can see that they do have a lot of vehicles and other items on the property.
Bert, on that paved area, it looks like there's a little bit of a fence or something, is there?
Yeah, I think there's a 6-foot tall fence there, and they're wanting to have it 8 feet tall. So here are a couple photos. You can see the paving. There's new asphalt in this area here behind the chain link fence. And this is just looking at it from the other direction. And then the consent map, we did get 3 cards from neighbors back in opposition.
Eric, can you remind us what the reason for the continuance was?
Last month, there were only 4 board members
Okay.
present, so,
Well, their attorney wasn't here either.
right, and their attorney wasn't here.
And the applicant asked then if it could be heard with more members?
Yeah, so
Okay,
if you
all
remember, staff didn't give a presentation last month. The people in
Right.
opposition just had the opportunity
Okay.
to speak, so.
Okay, because I know we had heard part of that
Yeah,
case.
that was just in case they weren't able to come today. We let them get their comments on the record.
Did we ask you about a summary of any nuisance or other zoning violations and how those were dealt with at the
Joanne might be
time?
able to speak to that.
Okay.
I think she will after I'm done.
think that's
I'm
why
sorry
she
if I
said you
preempted
close.
anything else you had to say, or,
And I was going to pass around the exhibits that Ms. Harlan had submitted for evidence last month. So just a bunch of photos that she had submitted. So staff has recommended denial of both both exceptions. We didn't feel that having an 8-foot tall solid fence within the front yard or within the side yard area is in character with the surrounding properties. We felt that the allowed 6-foot height would be adequate. And then we also didn't feel that the additional paving within the front yard area is in character with the surrounding neighborhoods. We felt that they could maybe pave some more area in the backyard or in the side yard that wouldn't have so much impact on the adjoining property. So, any questions?
if they want to have a 6-foot high side yard fence and make it out of concrete block, they can do that.
Do that, yes.
If they get an appropriate fence building permit,
Right.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll let Sue Sue, do you want to talk now?
You want
Yeah,
to go
since
now or
I'd-
later, Sue?
Since I'd mentioned the question about any compliance issues with the property.
Chair, members of the board, SUANNE Donovan, zoning enforcement officer. Excuse me. We've had ongoing enforcement problems with this property and are currently in court trying to rectify some of the ongoing issues. This hearing is separate, and our enforcement is on other issues.
Sure.
Accumulation of lots of vehicles and the use of the property. From an enforcement standpoint, if you allow them to build a taller fence all the way around, in our opinion, it would just be to mask what they're doing on the property, making it even harder for us to enforce the accumulation of vehicles, junk, whatever else they're doing on there. I don't think it's a good idea for the neighborhood to allow him to increase the non-conforming use of the property by hiding things behind a fence, or increasing the parking area by adding more concrete, just so you can store more of these vehicles in the front of the house. It's not good for the neighborhood. It isn't good for the way the neighborhood operates or looks. It just does not help us in enforcement or trying to get this property into compliance with basic standards of a good neighbor. I would urge you not to allow them to have a higher fence and more concrete.
Okay.
Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Brian Tingle, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant David Ross. With regard to the requested variance, we'll start first with the fence. Members of the board, the applicant has a permit for the backyard of the fence already. The applicable permit allows an 8-foot fence around the entire back portion of the yard. The only variance the applicant is in fact requesting is a 24-foot section along the north side. Let me see if I can find a photo here. If I may remove this.
Yeah. Bert, you want to?
Okay, thank you.
That's what.
With regard to the photo, with regard to the requested variance, you can see the applicant has started the 8-foot fence at the back portion of the yard here. The variance would be for the side of the yard along the garage or along the neighbor's house up to the front. They are not asking for a variance across the front of the yard. That would remain this normal standard size 6-foot or 4-foot fence, whichever they have there. The variance is not for the front. The only variance they're asking for is just to continue and keep in uniformity the 8-foot fence coming forward, which the majority of which would be alongside the neighbor's garage. Asking for that variance of that small section of the entire fence, it doesn't alter anything other than it keeps the fence in a uniform standard. It keeps the fence uniform to the front. That's why they're asking for that variance of that section. It's not the front. So I want to make sure that everyone is clear. The front will stay within the city guidelines. That is not the issue. It's just that side section of the addition of that fence. With regard to the additional parking area, members of the board and chair, Mr. Chair, and I do not have the permit, but Mr. Ross indicates to me that when he did get a permit for the extended area for the additional parking. The company who did that work was C&H Asphalt. They did the additional permit. When they were doing the work, Mr. Ross called the city. City Inspector Kevin King came out to the site, looked at the work in progress before they poured it, indicated that everything looked fine, to go ahead, that they were in conformity, so they did go ahead and they poured the asphalt as he thought he was in the right to do. And if he did have the permit and he was inspected, I believe the variance aspect were a little moot at this point because it has already been approved. I know there might be some confusion on that, but it's my understanding that the permit was granted. But that being said, Mr. Ross's desire to try to comply with the city, since that has been completed, the city inspector has come back out there, and it's my understanding, and I'm not sure who that inspector was, but another city inspector came out, informed Mr. Ross that maybe there may have been an error in what they allowed him to do, and recommended that what he do is paint the yellow line, as you can see, on the driveway, and put up the cones and make sure he does not park in that area, which he has done in an effort to comply. He is trying his best to comply with the city. There are ongoing issues that we are addressing, and he is working with the city to correct those. So the first position would be that the permit had been approved and the asphalt was approved, and he isn't trying to comply with the city's now recommendations as to if it was approved in error. That's what we're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen. That is my client's position, and that's why he would ask for the requested variances.
Questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? And we do have the testimony from the last month, too.
Chair, members of the board, do you want me to speak as to the permit for paving? Now
Yeah,
or
go
later?
ahead. Go ahead.
There was no permit pulled for any paving. Kevin
all.
King would not be an inspector that would go out and inspect for paving. A zoning enforcement officer may have gone out if they paved it and said you can't do this, but there was no permit pulled for any paving.
Any idea why the line was drawn there? Or?
No idea.
Okay.
We wouldn't have set a line on the pavement is going to bring in compliance.
As a permanent solution.
Yeah,
Right.
no.
At the most, you might tell somebody, you can't park over here right now, and
Possibly that was. a comment.
this will have to be dealt with later, blah, blah, blah. But, okay, if a permit was pulled, would the appellant likely have a copy of that, or they could have introduced that as evidence?
They could have. I looked it up on Tidemark, our
Okay.
computer system, and did not see
You
one
didn't find
entered
a
in the
permit?
computer.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Terry Harlan. I live at 2520 East 37th Court.
Thank you for coming back.
Yeah. I did just want you to know that apparently he was so confident you were going to okay it. He's already started to put up his fence on November 2nd. I have photos of that. And I had a couple more, too, to add to it. So, but I'm positive the only reason that this is going to be done is it's right in front of, like, my kitchen window. It's going to take a 15-foot fence for me not to see over that fence. And obviously, that's not going to happen. So 8 foot isn't going to make any difference, to tell you the truth. I can see everything. So if you want more pictures, I do have more. I had more
If you got them,
photos
we'll take them.
taken. So, and there is a photo of that picture of the fence they started on November 2nd. So,
There's still a lot of vehicles on the street, too.
oh, that's constant.
But the vehicles move at least once a day that are parked on the
Some of
street?
them do.
Okay.
I mean, that's just the views I have, I mean, from my home, and, you know, it's really sad when some of us take care of our homes, and when someone doesn't, it looks
Any
like that.
questions? Appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition? Mr. Tingliff, you got 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Again, Mr. Chair and members of the board, just very briefly, with regard to the fence that is already being started, I do have a copy of the building permit for that section of the fence, so it's not starting building what he's not supposed to. I just want to make sure everyone is clear on that.
Yeah, I think what we were looking for was the pavement, permit for the pavement.
That, as I indicated, the only thing that my client has is the company's name, and I don't have the permit, so the city may be very correct on that. That was just the information I was provided by my client. I do not have a copy of that permit.
Okay.
Thank you. Last questions for staff. I just got one question, Bert. we disallow the paving, they got to remove it?
They do, yes.
All right.
And just to clarify, I believe what he was saying is he has a fence permit for the 8-foot tall portion of the fence that is within the rear yard, and that is allowed by
Right.
right. So it's just the portion of the fence in the side yard that has to be 6 feet tall unless this board grants the
Relief.
exception. So
And Bert, he doesn't have a permit yet for that piece.
for that piece, he does not, yeah.
All right.
Any other questions? Thanks, Bert. Close the public portion, go to board decision.
I would move staff recommendations.
And I would second that with the comment that one of the basic tenets of our work here is that if we're going to grant an exception, it must be in harmony with the essential character of the neighborhood. I think we've already got problems with this property being in harmony with the essential character of the neighborhood, and I don't want to do anything else here that would further detract from that by supporting what was proposed here. So I will second Linda's motion for denial.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6 is a use variance at 301 and 309 Southeast 8th.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item number 6 is a use variance which would allow use of the property, which is now zoned M1 district. It would allow it to be used for a recycling operation, which typically requires the M2 designation plus a conditional use permit. Last month, or actually earlier this month, the City Council denied a rezoning request for this property here. They had requested it be rezoned to M2. The council and the Plan and Zoning Commission felt that rezoning it to M2 would not be in keeping with the city's long-term plans for this market district area. Instead, they felt that maybe granting a use variance for a 10-year period would be more appropriate. They recognize that right now it's an industrial building. There is some industrial, I guess, some life left in the building where it could be used for an industrial use. So the council did say that it would be reasonable to have a recycling operation there for about 10 years. Here's a sketch of what the applicant is wanting to do. Right now there's a building that covers pretty much the entire block. They would be removing the southwest quadrant of the building and replacing it with a paved area and some loading docks. I'd point out that any construction on the site will have to comply with a site plan that meets screening and landscaping requirements. So really the only thing the board's looking at today is whether or not this use is appropriate. Here are some site photos. This is the corner of the building that would be replaced. They would maintain or retain the east part of that building there, and then the northern portion. This here is just the south facade of the building. You can see it's
So Bert, is there going to be some demolition of parts of these structures?
yeah, of this structure here would be
Okay.
removed. This area, this part of the building back here would be retained, and then there'd be some loading docks
Okay.
on the south wall of that remaining.
And will the concrete block building, the single-story one that has the 2 bays out to Raccoon, will that be demolished too,
That
right
would
there?
be
Okay.
demolished, so-
Okay, familiar with that building.
And this is just the north side of the building. You can see there's a railroad track that runs right along the north side. And this is just the property to the east. You can see it's an industrial use as
Sure.
well. And I'd also mention the property to the west is also industrial. So it is reasonable to allow an industrial use to continue here. This is, again, the north portion of the building that would remain. So we only had one comment card come back in support. Staff has recommended approval of the use variance. Our recommendation does include about 11 conditions. For the sake of time, I won't go through all 11 of them, but they should be in the packets ahead of you. The applicant is in agreement with all 11, with the exception of condition number 1, We've said that the use variance shall expire November 26, 2023, which is 10 years after the date the decision and order is signed. They would ask that that actually be changed to 10 years after the certificate of occupancy is issued. That would allow them to be in operation for 10 years rather than just 10 years with the stop clock starting next Tuesday. So it's really up to the board if you feel that's reasonable. I know from staff's perspective, it could be kind of difficult. Like, what if they don't ever get a certificate of occupancy, or if it takes them 2 years to get that certificate of occupancy? So might not hurt to have some discussion on that, but otherwise the applicant is in agreement with the rest of the conditions.
Bert, if we had some language to such effect that 10 years after the date of certificate of occupancy or November 26, 2025, whichever is earlier, could we do that?
Yeah, I would say maybe 2024.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, I mean, but as far as that language, you can have and, or, but whichever occurs first, and that's, from a legal perspective, that gives you enough clarity for enforcement?
I think that would be fair.
Okay.
I would think there'd be enough planning done before we got to this point.
Sure, and I'm assuming that's something that we can discuss, but maybe that could meet both requirements if this is something we would want to
I agree.
grant a permit for.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Bert, certificate of occupancy, does that mean when they're ready to do business?
When they're
up
ready to
and
open
running?
up. Yeah, after they get, they'll have to go through the site plan approval phase,
Okay,
and then they'll have to go through the construction phase to make sure the site complies with that site plan, meaning are all of the trees planted, are all of the curbs in place, any fence that's required, has that been put up?
so it's inside and outside completion?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and you're right, there's building code issues as well.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Chairman and member of the committee, I'm Dave Harmeyer with Vista Real Estate, 2400 86th Street, Urbandale. I'm part of the ownership group that owns this property. We bought the property because we shared in the vision of the East Village concept and for the future appreciation of this property. We believe that the redevelopment opportunity is 10 to 20 years out. We were approached by Crink. We've been trying to market the property since March and haven't been able to find a viable user. We were approached by them to occupy this space. They wanted 20 years worth of lease and options. We told them we would not do more than 10 because we want to have that opportunity to redevelop when it occurs. So that was the first thing. The previous owner of this facility used this facility for RV and personal storage. He owned it for a long period of time, had Cobb Manufacturing there originally. It is not financially viable for us to continue to use this in just a general warehousing capacity because the appreciation of the property or there's a kind of a gap that exists in this area where you have to pay a little more for the property than what you can actually use it for. So we feel that it's a hardship on us. We aren't able to really use it in a general warehousing use because of the price we paid for the property. So complete redevelopment of the property is not possible also because the area has not grown, the historic district area has not grown. This area is going to be seen as commercial and industrial. And as you can see from the pictures, the uses in the area are M2 surrounding us. You got that one? Oh, you got it, okay. You can see that it's M2 on both sides of us and around. And actually, we're going to be cleaning up the site considerably. The actual block building is already down. And we'll take down the 6,000 square foot building once the lease is signed by Crink, if we get to that point. Our LOI is, of course, contingent upon the board's approval of the use variance. We believe it's very consistent for this area because of the uses to do this. We were supported by all the neighbors that did respond. We had 4 responses that we had collected from them, and I have copies of those too. They're right here, and I can give you those. And then we also have the Historic East Village's recommendation to approve this use, and the city staff's recommendation to do it as well. We would be fine with 10 years from certificate of occupancy with some kind of a date certain of August of 2024. That would allow us to do the necessary construction, and we have to get through to the spring to start some of the outside work because of the timing of it right now. So that would allow us to do it. So if we actually were done in June, which is what our target date is, then the 10 years would be from June of this next year through 10 years. But if we were comfortable setting it out in August, I think that would allow us to deal with any weather issues and still comply with our 10-year LOI. Okay. So we respectfully request the use variance for 10 years from the date of occupancy, not to go past August of 2024.
I think that's kind of within your wheelhouse, isn't it, Mel? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, just a couple.
Sure.
Dave, you may know this, it might be a little ironic, but the little building you just tore down used to be a beverage recycling
Yeah, they actually
business.
did, which was interesting. Doug Webb, the president of Crinks here, and he told me that they did 80 million containers out of that annually. He estimates they'll do 3 times that in their new facility, which is going to be state-of-the-art, open to the public. Nothing like it in the Midwest. And the East Village was very excited about it because they feel they need that in this downtown area.
Yeah, and I used to take containers down there for a nonprofit fundraising drive about once a month. And I am curious, your Q&A sheet you submitted said that you would accept containers from the general public for 3 hours on Fridays. Is that right?
Well, Doug's here. He could probably speak for it. They're actually going to do something that's significantly more than that.
Okay, good, because you'll probably have a good demand.
Doug Webb, City of Clive, 12368 Sunset Terrace. The plan is over the next 2 years is to return that into a redemption center like they do in Oregon. Okay. And I'll kind of give you just a little bit of an example. In Oregon, let's say you want to do, in the state of Iowa, we have a redemption law. Mm-hmm. So you would take all those redemption items, put them in a bag, and as you did that bag, you'd fill it up, you'd bring it down to our facility. And the way it's going to change is this. We'll give you a debit card, so you'll have a little plastic card. You'll go to the facility, you'll fill the bag up, you'll put a UPC sticker on the outside of it.
Sure.
You'll take your card, you'll scan the back of the card, then you'll scan the UPC, you toss it in there, and we give credit back to your debit card in 72 hours.
Okay.
So we're going to do that, and you brought up another good point, too. We are going to do with the charity drives and stuff like that, but we're not going to limit it just to the redemption. There's all kinds of facilities out there in the United States that do it on different items that help drive charity, in which you were participating before.
Right.
That's our goal. But participating right now where we're at, we're only at about 5,700 square feet.
Right.
I can't do much.
Right.
So we're looking at to expand ourselves.
Right.
Second thing is, you brought up that redemption center there. There is no redemption center now in Des Moines.
No.
There's none.
Right.
So we feel as if we can do a service of that, plus downtown doesn't have the single stream recycling.
Okay.
And they do, they're very limited. So we also thought we could facilitate this particular location to facilitate what you're thinking about in the future. It's going to take us a while to grow, but that's what we're looking at.
Good.
So.
And just one other quick question. Are you looking at any, aside from your building demolition and building improvements, you're going to be adding any landscaping or some trees, or I maybe didn't catch that, if you can maybe review that?
We are. We're berming up around the parking area, right in through here.
Okay.
And this area will be landscaped.
Okay.
And then also, we own this lot. It's not part of the request because it can't be. There'll be some landscaping done along there as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
One more question.
Yeah, I've got one more.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, can you just briefly describe to me what kind of odor emission controls you kind of have in place?
I'm going to let Doug answer that question
Okay.
too, being the expert in the area. I know all of the can redemption. Everything happens inside the buildings.
Right, yeah.
What was your question? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know exactly what kind of odor emission controls you have in place.
At this point, we're at our current facility, we don't have any. So we'll have to explore those. When we met with the city council, they had the same concern. When we get more into engineering all the equipment, we will make sure that that is taken care of through a proper drainage system, because that's what we're going to have to do anyway. So. Anything else for me?
We'll check here. Any other questions for the applicant?
The only thing I would add is that when they do redeem cans and bottles, it's clean, they're clean generally, so it's not the typical recycling type operation. We were concerned about that too as property owners, so they made us comfortable with that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? Bert, you think you guys could live with that extension if we did
I think
August 24?
2024 would
Okay.
be fair.
Right.
Okay.
So we don't even have to say it's 10 years, we'll just say the date.
Well,
We would just say the use variance would expire on X date. We don't have to talk
Right.
about 10 years,
Okay.
certificate of
Yeah, I
variance,
think
or
that's-
certificate of
get done early
occupancy.
with it, then it's good.
Yeah.
All right, all right,
He needs to lease it for 10 years.
Right.
okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Bert. Close the public portion, go to board decision.
I personally like everything about this because I love that we're taking an old building and they're doing something with it. I understand that 10 years down the road, that whole landscape is probably going to look different. So I think it's good that he's got a 10-year plan in mind. I love the idea of recycling. I just hate to throw things away. So I love that. So I would make a motion that we approve, subject to the change of item number 1 to the use variance shall expire on August 24th, 2024.
26 or 24?
24 is what he said he was okay with.
Okay.
He said 20, which, and they
It's a
were
little more than the
November.
10 years. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
I was
were-
going to say, we will sign it probably next week. It'd be the 26th, well, that's okay. Yeah, I guess that's fine.
Because they wanted till, shall expire in November 26th of 2023. It's really August 20, I don't care what date.
10 years, 9 months.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that that's perfectly acceptable because the landowner has to get the occupancy permit before he can rent it. So it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0, so you're all set. Now, if I'm around 2024, I'll look and see if you do.
I'm sure.
I think I know what you might be doing then.
Item 7 is an exception at 3307 Southeast 18th Court.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is a scenario with another fence, 8-foot fence in the side yard, although this time it's a structural wall.
And we do have a communication on that too, so.
It's being proposed. This is a residential neighborhood south of East Park Avenue, east of East 14th on Southeast 18th Court. On the east side of the road, it's the property there in yellow. This is looking at the home that's in question. The wall would go on the property line between the property to the left, where you see this vinyl chain link fence currently, or approximately there. This gives you a little better perspective of the proximity of the neighbor. One of the things that concerns staff is they're proposing a 6-foot block wall. We weren't really given any indication as to what kind of block other than some samples it might be. Certainly we would want it to be a finished type block. So if you're looking at this photo, where you have a textured masonry block unit, we'd be much more in support of that because that's more residential in character, similar to what you see for landscaping in a lot of cases. Just a gray, kind of what some people call cinder block, probably is not really much in character. We're not in the southwest part of the United States, or where you might see a lot of that going on. But the appellant is wanting to only do a 6-foot because there's a significant cost difference in labor, material, engineering, even to take it up to 8. Staff in looking at this, thought from a character standpoint, it'd probably even be, you know, if you're gonna put a wall there anyway, you know, taking it up to 8 feet with a consistent material is probably more in character than adding something at the top. So right now, there's a little uncertainty as to what would be proposed on the top. I've had a conversation with the appellant. Their intention is to do something opaque, wooden, solid. I'm not sure if they do a horizontal kind of design or separate pickets. I think separate pickets would look kind of strange myself, but probably.
And again, just on the upper 2 feet would be the
Right.
wooden part,
And the
according to
challenge
their
is-
proposal.
Right. If it was a 75% open on the upper 2 feet, it would actually be allowed by right. You can have an 8-foot fence in the side yard with the existing setback situation if it was open, like a chain link.
Right.
And then you can have the 6-foot wall in itself without any kind of action by this board as well. They would still need a permit. Anything in terms of block wall that's over 4 feet must be engineered as well. So there will be structural review of that to
Okay.
make sure it's safe under the building requirements.
Okay.
Based on this amount of separation between the dwellings, the fact that there's a driveway that's in between, there's not as much concern about the flow of air or the, you know, light in this case. From the staff perspective, I know that the neighbors indicated concerns about that. We're primarily, we would not want it to project in front of the further back of either of the two homes. So we don't want to see it go 8 feet out in front of one or the other. It appears to me that this home is actually a little further back, so we want to make sure, you know, that no fence would project out in front of that house.
Right.
At that point, it becomes only a character issue, I guess, with the immediately adjoining neighbor. Right now, this house has, and I didn't get a picture, I apologize, on the south side has an opaque vinyl type fence. But I think that the concern of the appellant is also to do some things to deal with sound issues that they have with their neighbors. So from staff's perspective, we believe it meets the test of an exception. We do want to have some oversight as to what that finished portion of the upper part would be, not knowing what that is right now. I think it needs to look residential in character, so we would want to see that final design run past the planning administrator before signing off on a permit as a condition.
Eric, I have a couple questions. One of the cards indicated that they were concerned about having the fence when they opened a car door. So the people in the White House, they're the ones that want to put this fence up, right?
Okay.
Can you show me on the picture, like, how far would this
Well,
wall?
if you see where the chain link fence is, and again, I don't know if there's any real implied right for somebody to swing out and open their car door over somebody else's property, but this wall would have to be on their property, so.
This wall would have to be like where the chain link fence is.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the chain link fence is probably at the property line or very close to it. And I can see, I mean, a wall or an opaque fence, you know, whether it's 6 feet or 8 feet would be a different situation if, you know, when you're pulling into your driveway or where you're putting snow, that type of thing. So I don't think this variance or this exception request really changes what could be done by a matter of right in terms of creating that situation.
And is there a difference between a wall and a fence? I mean, I think of a wall as,
Yeah, I mean,
we're talking about
a wall isn't going to fall over if you swing your door into it. A fence might be damaged easier.
I think your car would get damaged.
Yeah, neither one's going to be good for your car. I would think.
what about for the character of the neighborhood? I mean, are there any other walls in the neighborhood?
I mean, you see landscape walls, you see retaining walls in areas. You know, that material if it's the material that we're proposing, I think it would be acceptable. If everybody started putting walls up like that, it would start to look like Phoenix, you know, I mean.
But everybody would have the right in that side yard at 6 foot in height. They could
Yeah.
have an opaque fence or wall,
We
but
don't
at
see
8
that
foot in
there's a
height.
lot of difference between a 6-foot high wall, which they can do by right, and adding a 2-foot extension of a wooden opaque fence on top of
But
it.
you obviously wouldn't be in support of an 8-foot solid wall.
Well, there was some differing a matter of opinion amongst our
Staff?
review of which was better, having it all consistent or.
Gotcha.
At this point, I don't think that's in question, but.
Okay.
Certainly that would be a little more imposing from a kind of
Character
the fact that the wall is a lot bulkier.
All right.
You have the consent, Mag, Eric?
Oh, and I apologize, you didn't pass the card.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Applicant, representative of the applicant?
John Richardson, 3307 Southeast 18th Court. Questions about the wall?
Yeah.
Sure. Why a solid 8-foot wall?
Well, I wasn't going to do a solid 8-foot wall. I was going to
Okay.
do a solid block wall in 6 foot and then do a 2-foot cedar extension.
Okay. Why, but why? Why an 8-foot tall fence in a side yard that's
Well, did
of
you get a
solid
picture
character?
of what my neighbor's doing to us?
No. That's why I'm asking you what your intention is.
The intention is because they're punishing me by putting on their lights that illuminates the whole side of our house, which our windows are next door to. And then there's times where we have issues with sound because our bedrooms are right on that side. And I've tried everything I can, and this is the only solution.
What sound are you having problems with?
Well, if it's either, we got the thing resolved with somewhat with the dog, but it's
Okay.
still, some of the other stuff that they do to us, that'll just alleviate a lot of problems that we're having.
Okay. So this is pretty much about erecting a barrier because you think your neighbor's a nuisance in some fashion. Sound, light, noise.
Well, it is. It's like they intentionally illuminated our side of our house. And that started October 6th. Now, all of a sudden, October 6th, those lights weren't on. And now the side lights are brighter, and they illuminate in our bedrooms. I mean, I've got shades up to help, but our bedroom is right down at the lower level. That's where, I've tried talking to the neighbor before about their dog, twice before, and I couldn't get through to him, so finally had to call the police.
How long have you lived there?
I've lived there 26 years.
How long have they lived there?
20, 21? My wife's lived there 40.
So in general, you've known your neighbors for some time?
Yes.
Has this been a recent development?
It has.
That sounds kind of unfortunate.
It is.
I'm just curious, a wooden fence wouldn't suffice, huh?
The problem is with the wooden fences is that I'll never gain access to it. Never. I'll never be able to gain access to it. Even if they were to say that I could have access, they wouldn't let me have access. How am I supposed to maintain that wood fence?
Sure.
The one thing I can maintain is that block wall. I mean, that's more of a permanent structure. And the 2 foot on top of the extension, I can maintain that too.
So you're okay with the staff recommendation of having the 2 foot kind of what I would call wooden extension on top?
Yes. I plan on putting it in cedar, but I have an engineer that's drawing it up as far as structural-wise goes. He didn't get a chance, I didn't get a chance to get it today, but it is being drawn up because it's a requirement by the city anyway.
Sure.
So it is going to be drawn up, and I'm going to have a professional block layer put it up. I'm not doing it.
Now, how will the block layer be able to access the other side of the property line as he installs it?
He's not going to be able to. That's the thing we're going to have to do, is they know what they're going to have to do is just,
All work from your side?
correct.
Okay.
And it's just going to have to be one of those things we smooth out as we go along. Now, I've talked to 2 of them, and they said they can do it. And I've got a person, I'm in the plumbing business, so I've got people I know that actually can dig that trench. So what I want to do is dig that trench, get it done, pour it, and get it in as quick as possible.
Okay.
But I'm not planning on doing it this year, because it's getting too late in the year to do
I
it.
say, you'd have to get hustling.
Yeah, and then the fact is I have to, I have to get the engineers, I have to get the permits, and then I have to get the land surveyor out. It's just, it's just too time consuming to do it all at this time. And then, you got to contend with frost.
Right. Another quick question. The city says they'd like to have the finished masonry block units, which would mean probably on the neighbor's side, it's got like a nice finish on it, right, Eric? So how would you propose to be able to get that nice finish on that side as the blocks go up? You just have to
be able to.
You just have to work through that somehow?
That's the only thing I can do is the best we can do. I mean, I'm hiring a professional block layer. I'm not going to be doing it. So, I mean,
Well, if we would intend to approve this, the reason I'm concerned about it is I would want to make sure it looks correct.
Well, I understand. The thing
If you
is,
can't get to one side to properly face it, then I would be concerned it might not turn out very well.
well, I also understand that too, but I've also been told that I do have the right to have a 6-foot block wall regardless of this approval on this part of it. But I'm trying to do everything I can to appease on this part of it. So, access, if we could have that, that'd be great. I mean, then that way it'd turn out better. But
which we can't grant that.
I know that, and I understand that. That's the whole deal.
Right.
But, I mean, like I said, I spoke to a block layer, and he said he can do it. He can lay it down and still smooth them out and make them look good. I asked him very, very, all the way through on this thing. So I'm confident that, I mean, they're professionals, not me. So.
Okay. Thank you.
If you need any pictures, I do have a picture in color of my actual.
I would like to see it.
Yeah. If there's anything you can share visually, that'd be great.
We have to keep them, though, once you'd give them to us.
Yeah, I don't.
Or at least make copies.
Well, I already have copies of that already, so it's not a big problem. These are, I was addressing the question of they're saying they're going to ding their doors. I mean, I don't get that. I mean, my chain link fence is in there now. They've got their trash containers over there, and they've got their basketball hoop over there. If they were going to have problems dinging doors, don't you think they'd be doing it now?
I think the basketball itself might ding some cars.
And that's another reason why I want to put the block wall up, is because I know that wood fence, kids play basketball, they're gonna bounce it, they're gonna bang up against it. I mean, that fence, I can hear it a lot when they're doing that. So I just want something that's going to be sturdy and also look good. And if you can look at my house, everything I've done to my house is aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I've always made everything look like it belongs in the neighborhood. Like when I built that garage, I got the zoning approval for that. I mean, it was a huge garage. I made that look aesthetically pleasing too. I'm not going to make my yard look horrid.
Okay.
Okay. If you want to pass those along, we'll look through those. Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition?
Who that?
Cindy, you want to grab those?
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Lisa Decker, and I live at 3301 Southeast 18th Court, and my family and I are John Richardson's neighbors. I would like to outline some of the reasons we feel that the 8-foot concrete fence proposed by our neighbor would negatively affect our lives. The proposed fence is approximately 1 foot from our driveway. By that picture, you can see that there's a chain link fence. There really is only about 12 to 16 inches from the fence to the driveway, and it does curve a little bit, but there still is only anywhere from 12 to 16 inches in that area. We feel that if our children were playing basketball, that they would run into the concrete fence. There would be, more issues for them to be able to get hurt, more injuries that way. The large concrete fence would block sunshine in the south during the winter that melts our driveway and our ice in the winter. Would add more chance for injury in our driveway. John did put up a 6-foot gray vinyl fence on his south property line a couple of years ago to block out the view of his rental property next door. The fence looks very nice. We feel that a large concrete wall would be unsightly on our side, and it would certainly affect the value of our property. Our question is, why does he feel that he needs an 8-foot unsightly concrete wall along our property line, but they have a 6-foot vinyl one on the other side? He states that he needs the fence to block out our outdoor lights. Our lights have been in the same place for the last 20 years that we've lived next door to him with no complaints from him. We constantly have those lights on. The first time we heard anything about our lights was when the police department showed up at our home at midnight on a Saturday night, saying that our neighbor had complained that the lights were shining in his bedroom window, and they wanted to make sure that they were in compliance. The police officer did check, and we had a 100-watt bulb. He did say we had to put covers on the little round lights on the garage. Excuse me, I have a cold. And he said that we would need to put covers, which my husband the next morning went to Home Depot and purchased the little covers that needed to be done. So we did comply with that. We were very happy to comply with his request to build a very large garage that was not within city code. This was to accommodate his home plumbing business. We feel, however, that this request for an 8-foot concrete fence is unreasonable, and we cannot agree to the variance. We do also suggest that maybe if the board does decide to approve his wall proposal, that we would like the wall at least to be moved back 3 feet from the property line, as to help with issues as far as our kids riding their bikes into it, you know, when the kids are playing basketball, less injury. And when you're looking at a concrete wall, I mean, nobody in our neighborhood has a concrete wall. There's a few privacy fences made out of wood, and like I said, he has a vinyl one on the opposite side of his house. It's very, very nice, and it's gray. It doesn't look like there's any maintenance due on that fence. It's been up for years, and he hasn't had to do any maintenance to it. So we would not be opposed to a fence like that on our end. And as far as access to our property for him to put up, we are not spiteful neighbors. We're good neighbors. We've been good neighbors for 20 years. Just in the past year, we've had issues where he's called, you know, on our sidewalk having a bump, or our dog barking, and we have a little corgi puppy that was barking a lot at the beginning, and we did get a shock collar for him, and now we just put him out if we're going to be out with him. And so we are doing everything we can, you know, to comply with what he wants. So I know we have spoke to the other neighbors around us, asking them about our dog or our lights, if they had any issues with them, and they did not. So.
Questions?
Just a couple brief ones. Lisa, our board isn't here necessarily to resolve neighbor feuds on
Yeah,
property lines.
we understand that.
And both of you seem like very nice people. So I don't know, maybe we're missing something, or at least I am here. I don't see why this isn't something you two can resolve and get along with. But I am curious, the lights you mentioned on your garage, the police said they were maybe a little too bright in wattage. Are they like mounted coach lights that they're affixed lights, or are they swinging type floodlights?
No, there's little round floodlights about that big. And we've never had covers on them. They've just been floodlights.
But you're able to adjust their field of lighting with those? Can you move them around where they shine?
Move them around.
So you don't have them pointed toward his house or anywhere near him?
No, we do not have them pointed towards his house.
Okay.
They're like down our driveway.
Sure.
One is towards our deck, which is in the back of our house, and one is down towards the driveway. I know he's wanting the 8-foot fence to block out the light, but his bedroom windows, or his bedroom is in the basement of his home, therefore his windows are ground level.
Sure.
So an 8-foot fence wouldn't make any more difference than a 6-foot fence as
Okay.
far as trying to keep the light out.
Do you have those lights motion activated instead of just being on all the time?
No, we turn them on just at nighttime when we go to bed, and then my husband turns them off in the morning.
So is it a security issue for you to have it on all
It is a
night?
security issue. We've had a couple of break-ins in
Okay.
our neighborhood, and I know Mr. Richardson installed this security system all the way around his home,
Mm-hmm.
and a few other people. I mean, probably, I would say the majority of the people in our neighborhood leave their lights on at night, just because we have had
Mm-hmm. Okay.
some break-ins. Even the neighbor on the north side of us, her home has been broken into a couple of
Okay.
times. So it is a security issue with us.
Sure.
But if you go up and down our street at that in the evening, you'll see that a lot of people have their lights
Okay.
on. And they're the same lights that we've had there the
Right.
almost 22 years that
Okay.
we've lived there.
And just one final thing, no matter what decision we make here, he has rights to his own property
Correct.
to install a fence. You don't have rights to his property for bicycles or doors or
Right.
basketballs.
Right.
So we can't require him to set a fence back further on his property
Right.
to accommodate your family's extra zone, the neutral zone, or whatever you want to call it.
And that we understand.
We just can't do that.
We just, like I said, there's no stone fences anywhere. And we live on
Sure.
the south side, and I walk a lot, and I don't see
Right.
anything like that. It's mostly
Okay.
wooden fences or vinyl
All right.
fences, so.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just got one question. Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
Just one question, Lisa. You keep referring to concrete wall, and when I hear concrete block, that kind of denotes a bit of a negative for me also. But if it's a nice block landscape, are you opposed to that? There's some really pretty nice landscape block available.
I would not be opposed to a block wall. As far as the airflow and the light flow and that kind of stuff, we wouldn't be opposed to a block wall as long as it looked nice.
So that really is important.
That is important. We want it to look nice. We want our property. We take very good care of our home as well and have done a lot to it
Right.
in the
I can
past
tell
20
both
years.
properties are very
Yes,
nice.
and my
yes.
husband is meticulous about the yard and everything.
I can tell that, yeah.
So, for us to stare at a unsightly wall is our concern. And like I said, his other side has that beautiful vinyl gray fence that matches beautifully with his home, and there's no upkeep on that as well, so.
My only question is, why not a motion detector? I mean, it serves.
It's never been a motion detector. I don't know.
No,
We probably
I'm asking
could.
why not?
Why not? I don't know.
He'd buy you one for the holidays.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which deals with the security issue.
Now, we do have a side light. As you can see, our driveway, there's a side light on the side of our house, which is normal for most homes to have a side light. So we do have a side light there.
Could be on the same circuit as
Yeah.
the motion.
Right.
I'm just a little too frugal to leave the lights on all night, so
Right.
motion detector is right up my alley, so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if you'd investigated it further, we wouldn't be here today, but just a thought process.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition? You got 3 minutes for rebuttal.
I'll tell you, I don't like being here, but I don't have a choice. Those lights didn't go on until October 6th, and that's the reason why I feel I can just never, ever get anything done any different any other way. And I need that 8-foot wall for this purpose. And as far as the children goes, she's got I believe an 18-year-old and an 8-year-old. So if there's going to be an injury, wouldn't it be no difference in a fence? I mean, I just don't understand that. And then as far as the light on the side, that became brighter. It's just the thing is, I want to be able to sleep in peace. And my wife can sleep through just about anything, but I can't. And that's going to help a lot with the sound.
It's a good thing she can sleep through anything because of you.
So, I even addressed that with Mr. Decker at the time when I asked him about the dog, twice before I even had to go into, and I hated even calling the police, but I asked them for mediation. I just asked them to mediate, and they won't mediate. They wouldn't do anything with me on this thing. So I don't know what else to do.
You'll probably still hear the barking dog, even with an 8-foot solid.
Well, see, here's the thing, and I understand that the wall will help some because it's going to bounce off of it.
Sure.
So that will help some. But I also understand that that they've been able to take care of the dog without the bark collar, and it goes out, does its little thing, but it doesn't go out at 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. So I mean, it's a relief on that part of it, but. I really hated to do what I had to do, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't take it anymore. And like I said, I hated calling the police. I really did. And I wish I could have had this mediated through them and resolved all this deal. But like I said, these lights didn't go on until October 6th. And as far as security, we both have cameras. So, I don't get it.
Neighborhood.
I don't get it.
Well, at least one thing, I guess you can work on both sides of the fence now, anyway. That's what
Yeah. But like I said, as you can tell by my property, I try to make things as nice as possible. I've got a all vinyl house.
All right.
And just recently done a couple of years ago, right along with the garage. And as far as that 6-foot vinyl fence on the other side, that isn't adjacent to any driveway except mine. So really, there's nothing going to be up against it. And as far as I don't have any sound problems over there because no bedrooms are over there. All our bedrooms are on this side, every one of them. Okay. So it's going to help tremendously.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last questions for staff?
I have one clarification.
Yeah.
There was some talking about the finish of the block. My understanding is the units come finished before they're laid, so you don't finish them after.
So it's not that the mortar joints are all hidden, it's just they have a nice
That's the intention of the staff report, is that it's that type of unit that's already got a textured finish on one side at least.
Okay.
So that it's not this solid gray.
Helps break it up.
Cinder block with white mortar kind of wall.
Okay.
And then I didn't show this in the staff report, but this was submitted and is in the record with the application. This was the photo provided by the applicant from their upper floor. So, one of the things that we do require is that the 100-watt provision, and then light is supposed to be downward directed. So when they were asked to have the cutoff provided, that is a requirement. We require cutoff fixtures, so down directed.
Okay. Boy, I have to explain that to my neighborhood.
And in this case, if the applicant's
Leave that up there, Eric. Leave that up.
bedroom is in the basement, and if there are windows, would that give him?
Well, there's a lot of things that come into play.
Okay.
He has a white vinyl house, so anything that reflects even above the top of the wall might spill, or refract, downward, and so there's going to be a lot of challenges there.
Eric, would you guesstimate that fence we see there now is about 4 foot tall?
Yeah, that's a typical 4 foot.
Okay, so an 8-foot wall would be twice as high. Most of us can visualize this at twice as high, at least from that second floor. An 8-foot tall fence will not block those current lights.
Right.
So I don't know that.
I don't know if they block them entirely from
the bottom
the
floor
upper
where he
floors. No.
sleeps. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Close the public portion, go to board decision then.
Well, we aren't mediators, as was referenced. From that
Sending them
picture,
back for another month, we'll get anything more resolved either.
from the picture that the applicant submitted, the 8-foot wall by itself will not fully block this light view. It just won't. Now, if he sleeps in the basement, a window shade is $9.99 to buy and pull down. I see some of his concerns, but when you live in a city, you have neighbors, and it's not perfectly quiet. It's not perfectly dark at any time. I don't know where the in-between is here. I think if the neighbors next door would install a security light, as we kind of referenced, they could have their peace of mind, they could have their security, and they wouldn't bother the poor guy. He also has 0 landscaping on that side of the lot. If he had installed some faster growing shrubs, it might not be instant, but he could have some nice landscaping. That would also be a visual barrier. I just don't think building forts between people is 100% going to solve his issue, and isn't what I would suggest we try to do to make our city look better.
Here's what I'm thinking. He has every right to build a 6-foot wall.
Yes, he does.
So he could go ahead and build a
Yep.
6-foot wall and be fine. So he's just, asking for a little bit more.
Right?
To me, it's unfortunate. They've both been there a long time. Maybe if we grant this and we know that he's not going to do it until next spring, maybe that'll give everybody time to say, look, I really don't want this 8-foot fence. So maybe I'll put my lights on a motion sensor. Maybe we can somehow work it out. I mean, you heard him say he really didn't want to do it, but he doesn't have any other options. Everybody's.
That's a good point.
They haven't been able to work it out. So maybe if we grant the condition to have the wall, maybe that will make everybody step back and say, okay, what's the compromise here? So I guess I'm leaning toward granting it in the hopes that.
I think you're right, Linda, because you look at it, they can put the 6-foot up, they don't even need to
They don't
talk
need
to
us.
us. That would be the one thing I'd want to try and stop at the most. But if it's going to go up anyway, nothing I can do. Maybe, by granting this, we can get some cohesion, that they can get together and come together with some better solution. But yeah, especially since nothing's going to happen until
It's not
spring.
going to happen.
Yeah, Linda, I really appreciate your suggestion too, and to the folks out there, this is really your opportunity to step up and to resolve problems and take government out of it. I think this would be a great case study, and I think that's just an excellent opportunity. You're giving them this great window of opportunity to work together as neighbors and to make your neighborhood a better place.
Nicely put.
Any other thoughts? I'll entertain a motion then.
I move stack of recommendations.
All right.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Is there any further discussion? I think we got to, well.
I'm not doing anything.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Those opposed?
I'm just going to say no in principle. I hope they work it out.
I've learned to watch for that now. Motion carries 5-1.
It'll pass.
I'd like to see something happen before spring. Okay.
I hope they don't have to build the wall.
I do too.
That's good.
That's really what I'm from that too. Item 9 is the appeal of zoning officer determination at 912 43rd.
Chair, members of the board, SUANNE Donovan, zoning enforcement officer. We're here today to discuss a property at 912 43rd Street. Assessor's record. Let's see here. Here's the site map that shows the location of this property. You can see it's on a cul-de-sac. Here's your
It's actually like
roundabout.
a, like a circle, like a hot fixed.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
And here is the consent map. I'm going to show you pictures of the house,
Yeah, it was the same.
just so you get sort of an idea of the style and type of house that we're looking at. This house was built in 1949 as a single-family dwelling. It is now currently being occupied as a rental house with 2 units. The owner does not occupy the house. She lives elsewhere. At some point in time, another unit was added into the house. There are no permits that I can find for the conversion. There's no certificate of occupancy that was issued to memorialize and approve of the change of use. Certificate of occupancy for changes in use pursuant to 154, 151 have to be issued for a change in the use.
SUANNE, did I understand, did they go from 2 to 3 or from 1 to 2?
It is 1 to 2, that's
Okay.
my understanding right now. The property owner previous to the
I was
current
confused.
property owner was caught with an illegal rental. Both units were illegally occupied by a non-owner. Unfortunately for all of us at the time, the Neighborhood Inspection Division, which I was not the administrator of, took it upon themselves to do what they're supposed to do and make sure that the house was safe for the rental units, not checking the zoning. So they did issue rental certificates. Unfortunately for all of us, the Neighborhood Inspection Division doesn't get to deal with land use issues and whether it is zoned correctly for the use.
Interesting.
So we have a sale to the current owners. They come in for a rental certificate. Staff brings it to me and says, we can't have a duplex here. It's zoned R160. You can't have a duplex in this neighborhood. And they're right, we can't. It was an illegal conversion. The current owners bought it, didn't do due diligence, didn't say, okay, this isn't zoned for this, what's going on? They rented the units. It came to our attention also through neighborhood complaints. The over-occupancy is causing complaints on the street. It's causing crowding. It's causing all sorts of detrimental impacts, which is why this is an R160 zone, and it's regulated, so it doesn't have these problems. So how do we undo this? We bring it to the board and we say, board, this was never an authorized change in use, and it must revert back to a single-family dwelling. The options beyond that would be to go to zoning board or go to rezoning, and if that fails, they could come back to you for a use variance, I suppose. That would be an option. I'm not sure they would get staff or neighborhood support for that, since it's already causing problems for the neighborhood. This property is assessed at $217,000. Taking a unit out of this does not take away its economic value and probably makes it more economically valuable to sell as a single family due to the fact that that's what it's configured, that's what it was built for.
It's beautiful.
So I think two wrongs don't make a right. We can't leave this as it is, which is an illegal zoning occupancy. And so therefore I'm bringing it to you. I brought it to them and said, you can't do this. They're appealing my determination.
Okay.
It's that complicated and that simple, but I believe that we need to uphold the determination that it's not zoned correctly for a duplex and have them reduce it back to single family.
So are they got separate utilities or are they shared?
I believe they're shared, but I didn't check. I wouldn't swear to that. I don't know how the unit's in there. I don't know how it's configured.
Okay.
Can we see the assessor's page where it says single family? Because,
It's right there.
yeah, I mean, so,
There's never been a conversion that anybody has recognized on
Right.
any documents that I can find.
so anybody, I mean, anybody who looked at it would know it's single family, R160, one family, low density residential.
Correct, and if you were going to buy a property and it said that, I think due diligence would be to come to the city and say, why are there 2 units in here? Can I use it as
Yeah.
2 units?
Right.
That's,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right. And Sue, do you have a process now in place where when someone wants to look at a rental certificate or multifamily unit rentals, that there is a check for zoning? There is a double check?
We are going through, for
Okay.
the last 5 years, intense training on
Yes.
the NID side to make sure that they understand the basic zoning regulations, and they're much more apt now to come to me and
Okay.
say, can this
Okay.
happen? So,
Because I am not here to kind of beat you up on this, but there's been plenty of times where we hear, well, the inspector said, or we had a conversation. It's like, hey, that's all hearsay.
absolutely.
But when we issue permits to people and tell them in writing with a city seal and someone's signature that this is okay and they do it, I do think that makes it a little tougher on your end to have to say, we're sorry, sorry, sorry a bunch of times, and then still say, well, but we also want to take it away. Because it was approved by the city at one time.
I absolutely understand that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to beat you up here.
I absolutely understand
I'm
that.
usually about making it better as we go forward so we don't get into these kinds of things any more than we have to.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you're trying to do that.
That is
Okay.
my ultimate goal,
Okay.
is to not have to stand here
Okay.
and apologize and say, but.
So you're asking for forgiveness rather than permission yourself.
Sure, if you want.
So Ann, I have another question. Just looking at what you've put in front of us, it looks like Denise Cody has applied for a homestead and a military exemption, which are both only allowed for owner-occupied properties.
That is absolutely true. I think that's an issue that the county needs to look at. She's not residing there.
And you're telling me, because the application doesn't say that she lives there,
She does not live there.
but she's getting a tax break?
Absolutely.
When did the purchase occur? I don't see that on this page. It's on page 1?
2011.
Last page? Okay. Okay. And that rental certificate, since it expired August of 2013, they didn't apply for another one, or did they, and then this was caught?
They applied and then it was caught.
Okay, all right, so they kind of knew it was coming up. They submitted their renewal, if you want to call it that, and then it was caught?
Yep.
Okay.
It's not that different than a non-conforming use expiration like we granted for the.
Any other questions for staff?
Right out there. Help clarify.
Thanks, Sue-Ann. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
I'm Kenneth Weiland. I'm attorney for the party involved here. My address is 1502 30th Street, number 2 in Des Moines, Iowa. Well, I'd like to actually start where Ms. Donovan kept going back to, and that was regarding this due diligence. If you would look at the ordinance section at issue here, it does provide for a grandfather clause from if property was being used in 1996 as a duplex. That particular ordinance does provide for that. Now, it was not that way in 1996, so clearly this property did not meet that. However, if a party was researching, saw that it had a current rental certificate, saw that there was an ordinance that provided for this grandfather clause of this property, I think that that right there alone would say that this person would have committed due diligence to see, okay, there was an exemption, this property is there, so therefore the conclusion a logical person would have is that the city had that this was grandfathered in, and that the city was allowing this as a rental. My clients, pursuant to the documents I've handed out to you, you can see that the document here of the listing, when my clients were looking for purchase, I say clients because Mr. Curtis White is also part of this, although the property is only in Denise Cody's name, but they live together and actually purchased the property together, just it was only done in her name. So I just want to understand why I say the parties rather than just Ms. Cody. Anyways, when they were looking for that, this here specifically notes in the listing agreement or listing that that there's the apartment with the $550 rent there. And of course, as also this letter from the real estate agent indicates, that was specifically what my clients were looking for, was a property this way. If it had not been for the permit that it existed and the due diligence that was done that showed that there was, a clause that allowed for an exemption, and the permit had been in place since 2005 for certain. They knew that for certain that it had been in place since then. I guess what my view is that this is a matter of fairness. They purchased this house with the understanding that they'd be able to rent it. City had issued permits on multiple occasions, not just once. This wasn't just one mistake by the city, but multiple occasions by the city. That in that case, I believe it's unfair for the city now to sit up and say, oh, well, we made a mistake. You shouldn't let them be able to use the property with the way that they intended it when they purchased it, even though we made a mistake that would have led them to believe that they could use it for that purpose. Further, I would like to point out the question was raised regarding the homestead exemption and whatnot. My client and both parties lived in the house until August. So that homestead exemption was applicable up until they moved out, of course, but they only moved out here in the last 2 months. So that was a proper request at the time, because it was owner occupied until August. Further, the parking, the issue that was brought up by Ms. Donovan, that's not going to be alleviated one way or the other by this, because they are allowed to at least rent out the house as a single unit, even if the duplex component is not allowed they would still be allowed to do that. And the parking problem is from the people that are renting the primary unit of the house, not the small apartment, which is what we're here at issue. So the parking issue is not resolved at all by eliminating the duplex. There's only one person living in the duplex, and she, you know, and that person, you know, keeps car, you know, parked in the garage, and usually up in, you know, the one that's been living there had been using the bus. So the parking is primarily as a result of the people living in the main unit. So I really don't, I mean, there's, I mean, you understand, I think all the facts are laid out before you. I don't think I have any more to go over that. I just would like to appeal to you from the standpoint of fairness here, and the fact that my client, you know, was seeking to have this, would not have purchased this house, but for the permit being in position, you know, in position at that time. So, any questions?
And sir, I do have a question.
Oh, sure, no problem. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I have a question. Looking at this listing that somebody's printed out, if you look at the top right hand, it says property class, and it says residential. There is a place on the multiple listing, if somebody is selling a duplex or a multifamily, it's not listed as residential, it's listed as multifamily, which it doesn't look like this was listed that way. It was listed as just a residential property. I can have a residential property, I can own this house and rent it out as a one-family home, but it was never listed as a multifamily property.
Well, it does specify that in the remarks.
Well, that's remarks that somebody's written, but.
Yeah, this isn't a legal listing, this is a.
Yeah, this is just a listing
This is a
that somebody's
business
turned in. But this goes by what the county assessor.
Okay.
The information that's here is pulled from the assessors, and it clearly is residential, not multifamily.
Well, then why did the city issue the permit?
Okay.
I mean, that's the question. I mean, obviously, my client is relying on the fact that the city.
I'm not here for that reason.
Okay.
Right.
And Kenneth, you mentioned the word fairness, and I like that word, but in fairness, when they bought the house, the rental certificate they got said owner occupied on one unit, rental in the other. So in fairness, what if we said, hey, we grant them a variance where owner occupied and one rental unit. They got to move back in the house then if they want it.
And
what would you say to that?
Well, I would say my clients may very well move back into the house.
Okay.
if
Have they
that's the
bought
case.
have they bought other property in Polk County or Iowa where they currently live?
Well, they've got multiple different ownerships of property.
Okay,
This was a house they were living in, and they would or not opposed to moving back into it if that's what it takes to maintain that or establish it as an owner occupied.
Okay.
But the problem is though, is that where they're being told that even if they did, they wouldn't be allowed to rent out that duplex.
Which is why you're here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Curtis White, I think you'd be stepping up there.
Curtis White, 4107 Lakeland Court is where we reside now. I've been in real estate for 20 years, and I've relied on the city heavily. When I see that renter certificate, I'm thinking everything's okay. I also have been a real estate agent for 10 years and active right now, but when you see those listings, you take the due diligence have been done, that I have the certificate, I saw the certificate, we called down there, it said the certificate was valid. In the 20 years that I've been buying and selling properties, not once have I ever had my certificate pulled after we bought the place for whatever reason. And when I saw the certificate on there and the residential, I know that they make variances for it. So I knew that whatever exception was made, it was going to carry on to the next buyers. I never would have suspected that they were going to not grant it again. We solely shopped for houses that had rental income. If we're not allowed to keep that and do that, it's going to put a hardship on us even if we did move back. And the way I develop homes is I move in one. We're probably going to keep this one for long term, but I move out of that one to work on another one. That's what we're doing now, to develop one while we're in it, and then sell that one. And then, so we kind of use this one back and forth. But we haven't even had this one that long to do it. An opportunity presented itself, and that's why we've only been in there 2 years, going in 2 years, and we jumped into this other one to develop it. But never did I see this coming down the road that we wouldn't have bought it. We just absolutely, we had a number of properties to pick from that had some type of addition rental to it, and we chose this one believing in all faith that it was, and if you see it, I inspect properties too. It's set up. I couldn't see a reason why. Nothing would have sounded an alarm that something was wrong or that a variance was given there. It had its own separate furnaces. It had its own electric. It was all there. So with my 20 years of experience, if it just got by me like that, I don't know who else would have came in and did more diligence and said that, hey, I could foresee this problem happening. And it would just be unfair. It's not fair to say this can easily be undone by simply saying, well, you move back there. I mean, too many things have happened, and we did this based on the city's certificate that we saw. And I'm sure the real estate company sold it based on that certificate that they saw from the city. So I just want to make sure that it's not as simple to undo this problem by saying, well, move back in this property and keep the certificate. I mean, we've invested in other things now, and if in fairness, I think what should happen is that we keep it, we're allowed to have it, and that if we sell, then it can't go on, because we know everybody's aware of the problem now. So if we sell, it shouldn't go on, but as now, we should be able to have the variance on it. Thanks.
Curtis?
Go ahead.
I just didn't want him to get away. Okay, I appreciate everything you just said. And in summary, I don't want to oversimplify your comments, but you said we followed what we thought we could do and what their certificate told us, right?
State it again.
I think in summary, what you said was we followed what the certificate told us and we thought we were good, right?
Yeah, I thought there was a valid certificate.
Yeah. Now, I haven't seen the certificate. No one's introduced it as a piece of evidence, I don't think. But doesn't the certificate say right on it, owner occupied and then one rental? All right, I'll have to dig through that,
Yeah,
but
I don't think it's specified. It's just
does it say that on the certificate?
I don't think so. We can answer that right now if we see it.
Okay. Because what I'm getting at here, and perhaps I'm wrong, but if it said that on the certificate, then you should have been under notice. As long as you own it, you'd have to live there.
Yeah, and back, Kenneth, while I'm back up here, I'm looking at this and I do not see anywhere it says on the certificate that it must be owner occupied.
Well, part of the city's crux here then, and maybe we'll, with the chair's discretion here, sometime we'll ask the city this. If the city believes in its rationale that it was issued as owner occupied and one rental, that should be denoted somewhere on some document.
You could have a single-family home. Well, we'll get into this.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't appear to be on there right now.
Trust me, if there would have been any kind of light that would have really just blinged off, it would have saved me. We would have just not bought the property.
Okay.
I think the question was asked before, Mr. Chair, are there separate utilities or separate electric or separate gas meter?
Yeah.
And so there's two of all of that?
There's the water. We pay the water for the whole thing, but their furnace is separate and their utilities is separate.
Any other questions? Thanks, Curtis. Anybody else here speak in support?
I guess I'm opposition.
Oh, hang on one second.
Okay.
You get your right word.
Okay.
Always have to check and make sure. You sit tight. You're going to be coming up here in a second, though. Okay, now, anybody here to speak in opposition? Sorry. Got a procedure to follow.
Hi, my name's Frank Iacovano. I live at 4324 California Drive. I'm not opposed to it being a single house or whatever. I guess why I'm here is I don't think the people that are living there is a single family or whatever. There's cars all over the place. I'm not opposed who lives there. If it's supposed to be a single in an apartment, that's fine, I guess, but it's not being used that way. So I guess that's all I had to say.
Any questions? I mean, what do you see?
Pardon me?
There's more than one family, two families?
I don't know. There's at least 8 cars, 2 motorcycles, and I don't know how many kids live.
And you're sure they're all affiliated with that house? I know parking's tight in your area. They all come in and out of there. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in opposition?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mike Coyne, and my wife and I, Peggy Russell, live in the house right next door, 943rd Street. And we've lived there approximately 20 years. And it had always been our understanding that that was at one time a dentist and his wife, and that small addition was actually a dentist office. And it has a separate sidewalk from the street in that way. So his practice was attached to the house. Mm-hmm. That's how that was our general understanding how that became conformed. So we've lived through a number of cycles and a number of owners in that house, and it's always been just fine. It's always been owner occupied, and it's always been, the small house has always been occupied by a single individual, and the number of cars have never exceeded, there's really only 2 parking places associated with that property, and that's what is now covered by the attached or the unattached garage. So again, in level of fairness, we feel that if you look at that area, it's all R1. And this would be a change of usage of an individual lot that it gets down to that word of spot zoning. I mean, you're really taking a piece and changing it from the character of what that neighborhood was not only designed for, but what it's been used for. And I appreciate the misfortune of Mr. White and his fiance, but it's never been presented anything other than R1, and that's our feeling. So we feel it'd be a detriment to the value of our property, the character of the neighborhood, the capacities of the neighborhood. The parking is an issue right now under current ownership. That street that runs by there is restricted parking from 7 to 9 every weekday, and it comes around the curve. If you've got cars parked on that, you can't see. There's high school traffic, that type of thing. So that's some background on the property. I appreciate the job that you have to do, and that would be my comments.
Thank you.
Just one question. Since it appears they had rental certificates since 2005, you didn't notice that there's 2 families there?
Oh, no, we've noticed that. I mean, but I don't know about the rental certificate. I mean, I didn't know if it was valid. It's always been. However, as I said, since we've been there, it was our understanding that it had previously been a dentist's office. And there's always been a single tenant in that small apartment, and the owner has always lived in it. We thought it was probably converted for a mother-in-law's piece or something to that effect, which R1, I think, would probably facilitate some of that, but thank you.
Okay. Anybody else here to speak in opposition? You got 3 minutes for rebuttal if you want to.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Since it's the zoning officer's determination, doesn't the zoning officer get the chance to speak?
That's probably the best thing. Yeah, Curtis, we had to do this before. That way you don't get blindsided.
I understand the fairness argument. I truly do. I also understand the fairness argument from the neighborhood's perspective. This is a change. Having an owner occupied with a boarder or a mother-in-law or somebody living in the house, we didn't catch it. It was flying under the radar. It was silent. Before that, it was apparently a dentist's office. We don't have any permits that change the use. We have no certificate of occupancy. No one's come forward on the zoning side to legitimize this change. Again, going back to Curtis's 20 years of experience, Curtis understands real estate. He should understand, as was previously pointed out, this is listed as residential, not multifamily, commercial. The assessor says it is a single family, R160. I would hope that people would ask more questions than just saying, how did this get the certificate? If you know that there's going to be an R160 question, come in and say, since 1996, is this going to be okay? Is this really a duplex? It's an unfortunate circumstance. I certainly understand Mel's admonishment that we do a better job, and that's what we're trying to do. I wasn't in control of this at the time.
Right.
It flew under somebody else's administration. They didn't do the checking that they should have done. Curtis didn't do the double checking that I believe he should have done. But we have to rectify the situation. It needs to be a single family dwelling in an R160 district.
So
yeah.
My question is, so the thing that we're going to look at is just upholding the zoning officer's determination.
Correct.
Then the next step they'd probably have to, if they want to do, is pursue another a variance or exception?
Rezoning.
Okay,
And then
or rezoning.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if that fails, a special use use permit, use variance back to you.
Okay.
I mean, they're not going to lose all the economic value.
No.
They can't rent that unit. They can rent the whole house. They can't rent the second unit. They can open it up, have it be a single-family rental. That's what they're allowed to do.
Okay. And Sue, I just want to go back to this once more, since it was in your rationale for your decision. You said that there was a rental inspection certificate issued for a second unit, with one unit being owner-occupied and not requiring a certificate. So that rental certificate that was issued, even though it doesn't really say it, it was just for the one unit then, right? Is that?
Under a duplex, you'd look at the whole thing, but you'd say this is the rental part and this is the owner-occupied.
Right.
And I think some inspector said, well, this is owner-occupied with a second unit, and that was in his notes about how he was rationalizing what he was
so those notes were something you have or saw, or?
in the Tidemark case, correct?
All right, okay, all right, because I was just wondering where you got that documentation. Because to me, and I don't, this may be a dead end here one way or the other, if they were owner-occupied and they were renting one unit and you had incorrectly issued that, I might say, hey, let's give them 5 years and then they can figure it out. But now the guy's moved out. So to me, I might be willing to look at an owner-occupied angle here for a little bit and get them over the hump somehow. But if they don't live there, then...
Clearly, they are not living
there. Right. So even the intention you had when you issued it, they are not meeting that intention when the city issued it, even though you issued it incorrectly anyway.
Correct.
All right, thanks.
I have a question, Suanne. It looks like these folks bought this house in January of 12, and the rental certificate says that if there's a change in ownership, that must be provided to the neighborhood inspection office within 24 hours. Was that done? Did any, this really, was anybody in your office in January?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check the record on that. I know it came to our attention when they came in to apply for the renewal.
Yeah, which would be in August.
Right.
But, it says that you have to be in there within 24 hours after a change of ownership.
Should have brought it to our attention in January. I don't know the timing of when we first knew.
Okay.
But that would be the applicant's job to come to you and say.
Yes, when they purchase it, yeah.
Any other questions? Thanks, Suanne. Curtis?
this fairness thing that keeps getting thrown around. I listen to the city come and say, well, Curtis should have known, bam, bam, these two examples, he should have known that this was the way it was. Okay, slap Curtis on his hand one time. The city issued that certificate 05, 09, 012. How many times do they get to say, get by with it, and then it gets tossed to me my very first time, and it's going to cost me big? It does affect the value of the house. Right now, we rent out the house for $1,400 on one side, which is still less than our payment, and $550 on the other. So for me to clear that out and try to rent it, we're going to be in a negative deficit trying to keep it rented as one unit. So it will hurt us. As far as the traffic, I'm not sure how he knows how many people are in the house. It is one family. Now, me coming from a family of 21, I can tell you that you can have a lot of people living in a house. I have 15 brothers and 6 sisters, and that's just the truth. So at any given time, we could have had 17 people, living in the house, and then maybe 7 of us are driving. So there is one family just living in the house. But we did address the problem with the cars. I actually rented some spaces now because it was a problem when I was there. You're talking serious issues, even just for Denise and I, with the garage and trying to park. You have to wake up at 7 to move the car, and if you move it on the side, you have to come back and beat the snow guys coming through, and it got towed once. So, I mean, it's like Russian roulette with trying to keep the cars, even just with 2 people.
Which is probably why it doesn't work for multifamily.
Well, it's hard even for us. But I did leave that. Rented 4 spaces on the where the bicycle shop is.
Sure.
So he's allowed us to do that to alleviate that. Even before that, I had talked to the neighbors about that circle back there, approaching the board to let us cut some parking spaces in there. That was another idea that we were going to try to do to get it. But this would devastate us. We bought this house with the intention of it being a rental, and to now say, well, the city made a mistake, you got misled, you deal with it. That would be no different than me selling you a car with a title that says car and then bring you a truck.
Right.
I mean, you just can't switch it.
But Curtis, I want to throw something at you. This house is probably in one of the most unique, niftiest kind of chic neighborhoods in Des Moines for what people think of neat Des Moines houses. I mean, we hear about our Beaverdale bricks and drive north of Roosevelt, you see all the neat architecture. If we don't pass this, why can't you just sell it outright as a single-family home and come out whole? It's a nice-looking house. I think somebody would just buy it as a house to live in.
I'm sure that would, and
maybe I'm oversimplifying. I haven't been in real estate for 20 years.
Yeah, just go out and sell a house. I mean, I'm sure, yes, selling could be a possibility. Would we make our money back? Who knows? Okay. Is that part of my financial plan? I live off real estate. I buy properties to make money off them. That's my income. That's my job. So, and that's why we bought the property in that area, because we know, and we've done nothing to make it. In fact, we did enhancements, River Rock in front, and to keep compliance with that. You can't charge $1,400 a month and have a raggedy house.
So, okay, I'm going to give you one more question here. If you've bought real estate for 20 years, I find it unique that this is the one house you chose to live in and rent the unit, rather as just own it as rental property and rent it as a duplex. Did you live in it because you understood that that was a condition of the rental certificate?
No, we buy them, stay there, develop it, and then move to the next. That's basically.
Okay, so it's just all happenstance that you kind of were in compliance with the kind of permit that kind of wasn't issued properly anyway, and now you're not in compliance with any of it.
I went in this thing, everything in this house indicates valid certificate. 2 sidewalks, 2 addresses, 910, 912. You just, there's nothing that would have caught me that said, hey, something's fishy on this.
Okay. Gotcha.
Any other questions? Oh, you're good, Curtis. Thank you. Now we'll close the public portion, go to board decision. Quiet group here. It's a tough one.
Well, I'll just kind of open up the discussion just to start it.
Good idea.
I think that it would be unfortunate in a way for the city to continue sort of allowing this kind of occupancy. I mean, because that's clearly not the direction that the city wants to go. This is, like Mel pointed out, this is an extremely important residential sector to Des Moines. It's really part of our identity of upward mobility. And I certainly would love to see our YPs in East Village begin to migrate out to our neighborhoods. So the integrity of neighborhoods is really, really important to us as we are continuing to become an emerging urban center. So for that reason, I guess I really have some difficulty with where Curtis is right now.
Just to start the conversation.
My thoughts are that we can't change zoning. If he,
Right.
and the zoning officer's correct, she's doing her job. It's a single, it's R160. Every indication is that it's a single-family home, and we can't change zoning. If they want to make this a duplex, then I believe that we have to uphold the zoning enforcement officer's determination, and they can take it to zoning and try to get zoning changed. But we can't change zoning.
Yeah.
We also have a test of economic hardship. I don't believe at 200,000 on this street that there's economic hardship. The houses on that street sell for that and plus.
I think our hands are tied.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I think they are too. The thing I like is that there's two other avenues. You can either get it rezoned or get a variance from Board of Adjustment. Right now, we're just stuck with, we're going to either uphold the zoning officer's decision or disallow it.
Yeah. Which,
That's the only thing we're hearing.
And I know
agree with Curtis, I think we got the wrong information to him. I hate to see that happen, and the city kind of compounded it, but, you know, it is, all we're being charged with is zoning enforcement officer's decision.
And I'm often one that brings that very point up when we're having these discussions, that really, we're not here to solve the issue. We're just here to see, did she make her determination correctly? And I believe she certainly did from the zoning perspective. And whether people like this or not, when one governmental entity, even if it's the same entity, if one thing says you're okay to do this and signs off, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything else is in line. You have the responsibility to check yourself. Like the DOT issues you a junkyard certificate, that doesn't mean that you're in compliance with everything else. You're just in compliance with that one part. Now, it's unfortunate that maybe the rental division was not in lockstep with zoning, and I know Sue's got great leadership abilities. She's making those changes. So, you know, it's really just the zoning enforcement officer's determination, and I would agree her interpretation certainly is correct. The zoning's never changed here.
It's like a non-conforming use that expires.
Right.
The certificate expired.
Yeah. You know,
incorrectly granted, expired.
if we uphold her determination, can he come back and say, hey, now I'd like a real variance? I know I was wrong. Now I'd like a variance. Can he come back under a separate thing?
That's why I want to say the door's not closed.
Right.
It's still there. It's just that this avenue is just a zoning officer's determination.
Right.
That's essentially.
Thank you for your leadership, Mr. Chair.
Sounds good.
I would move staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Gotta go to the second round, Curtis. You're not shut out yet. Item 10 is a variance at 303 Scott.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item number 10 is actually two variances which would allow for two separate building additions to the Earl's Tire business. The site is located on the south side of Scott Avenue, just to the east of the Des Moines River, actually the confluence of the Des Moines Raccoon River. There is an existing Earl's Tire building here at the corner. He would be removing a portion of the building and then putting two additions onto the building, one on the west and one on the southeast. I'll show you the site. So again, north is up, here's Scott Avenue to the north, southeast 4th Street to the east. The existing building is right, kind of a T right now. They would be removing this portion of the building here and then putting on a new addition along the entire west side. Yeah, actually, BERT's picture probably has a better presentation. So you can see the new additions are in orange. So it's zoned M1 light industrial right now, which requires a 25-foot front yard setback from the property lines. So they have two front property lines to the north and to the east, so they need to get variances of those setback requirements. You can see the existing building right now is already up to this front property line on the east, and then has a similar setback as what's being proposed to the north. So I'll show you the elevations of the additions. This is what you would see from the north side would be this here, so the existing building here, and then the new addition. And then looking at it from the west, which is from the riverside, this is what you would see. So there'd be a row of 7 overhead garage doors facing east. Then, I'm sorry, facing west. Then on the other two sides of the building, this is what you'd see from the south, and then this is the new addition on the east side.
It says open there, is that what the doors?
yeah.
Doors open, or it'll be like kind of a machine shed with no doors?
I think it'd be a machine shed with no doors where vehicles can back directly into it.
Got it.
The tallest part of the elevation here is already existing. They would just be putting this lean-to on here. And this shows the existing is right here, and then the addition on the east would just be this lean-to addition here. The few photos, this is looking from the west, so looking east. This is the portion of the building that would be removed and then replaced with the larger addition on the west side. This is the southeast corner of the building. The lean-to addition would come off of this portion of the building and then would line up with the east wall of this. So if you remember a few years back, this site was in front of us for having outdoor tire racks right here.
Yeah.
So this would replace the area where the outdoor tire racks are.
Did they do the outdoor tire racks?
I think they were given like a 2-year variance to have the outdoor tire rack. So it looks like from this photo they've been, it's been cleaned up. So I would point out that they would need to have a site plan for these additions, which would have to show how these overhead, I guess what they labeled as open on the elevations, they have to show how those are going to be accessed. So there may be some required paving in front of those openings. Then the consent map, we did not get any cards back in support or in opposition, so there's nothing to show you there. From staff's perspective, we feel that the proposed additions are in keeping with the character of the existing building. As you can see, it's not going to be any closer to the east property line than the existing building, and it won't be any closer to the north property line than the existing building. And we've recommended approval with 3 conditions. 1, that they comply with all building codes with issuance of all necessary permits from the permit center. 4, any addition shall have a 4-foot tall masonry wainscot along all exterior facades. And in talking with the applicant's engineer this morning, I think they're going to ask that be reduced to 3 feet. But staff's recommendation would be for a 4-foot tall wainscot. I'll let them explain why they feel the 3 foot's more appropriate. And then number 3, any overhead garage door shall consist of a color that blends with the primary color of the siding and shall have a row of windows. And the purpose of that is, since this is the side of the building facing the river and it is directly across from Principal Park, we feel that these garage doors should kind of be painted a neutral color that blends in with the building. We don't want the building to be a darker color and then have bright white doors that kind of stand out. And then we also feel that there should be a row of windows on these doors. And I understand that the applicant's probably concerned about security, so maybe the windows could be fairly high on those doors, but we did feel that some sort of windows should be provided to break up the doors, so. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Sounds good, Bert. Applicant, representative of the applicant?
Good afternoon. My name is Bart Turk, and I'm with Civil Engineering Consultants, 2400 86th Street, Des Moines. Bert did a pretty good job on explaining the project. We will be in compliance of all the recommendations. One of the things we were asking to reduce the wainscoting down to 3-foot elevation, just because the existing building here had a 3-foot wainscot. So we just kind of wanted to match that. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions you would have.
No problem with the windows either?
No problem with the windows.
Okay. And then will all the gravel parking be removed from the property once this is done?
Yes.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay.
Any other questions? Like that presentation, good job. Thank you.
Credit where it's due there, too. Appreciate that.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? Yeah, Bert, one question. I think he gave a compelling reason for a 3-foot wainscot. You think that's okay? Or
Yeah, I would point out the existing building has a 3-foot wainscot of just the metal. We've asked for a brick wainscot or a masonry wainscot, so it will be a different material, so.
Okay. Wouldn't it look odd, 3-foot and
Probably
jumping
would
up to
look-
4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Won't put it too hard. But
Splitting hairs.
I know. Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Bert. Hearing none, we'll close the public portion, go to board decision.
Well, I think this would be an improvement down here. It still keeps the business viable. You know, they're kind of on the fringe of the South Market District, but it'll still, you come across that Scott Street Bridge, it'll look nicer. I'm all for it.
Make a motion.
With the 3-foot?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. I'd make a motion to recommend approval of the requested exemption, subject to the conditions as presented by staff, with a modification to condition 2, that any addition shall have a 3-foot tall masonry wainscot along the exterior facade.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Motion carries 6-0. You guys got the express route today. That was pretty good.
And they're going to make a substantial investment in this, so.
Yeah.
That's nice to see that.
Item 11 is a conditional use permit and variance at 727 Southeast 14th Street, and we have a police report on that.
Item number 11 would be, they actually require 2 parts. One's the conditional use permit that's necessary for them to sell alcoholic liquor, and then the second part is a variance to the separation distance requirement. The subject property is the Super Stop gas station convenience store at the corner of Maury and Southeast 14th Street. As you know, the recently adopted alcohol regulations require 500 feet of separation distance from any church, park, school, or daycare. In this instance, there is a Grace Calvary Tabernacle Church on this parcel here. It's located 190 feet to the east. It's separated by an alley, some single-family dwellings, and then this street here, but it is within 190 feet, so it does not meet that 500-foot separation distance. Here's the photo of the gas station. I would mention it is zoned C2. As a C2 property, they're allowed to sell beer and wine as long as they meet 150 feet of separation distance, which they do meet that since the church is 190 feet away. So by right, they can sell beer and wine without any conditional use permits. So the conditional use permit would only allow them to sell the alcoholic liquor. Here's another site photo looking at it from the south. And this is at the corner. And then this is looking at it from East 15th Court. or East 14th Court, you can see the dwelling. There's another dwelling just to the north here, but there is a single-family house here that really back up to the business. And then here's a picture of the Calvary Grace Tabernacle Church. And then you may also remember about a year ago, they were before the board making a very similar request, and at that time the board had denied it. So they've waited a year and they've came back to make a similar request.
Bert, at that time it was denied, wasn't there an issue like the applicant wasn't here, there was a change in management or
I
something?
recall that too, yeah.
I don't remember the specifics.
Okay, all right, but there wasn't, I don't believe there was a direct presentation by the applicant at that time, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of thinking back, I'm trying to recall it.
Yeah, I think it was continued once, and then.
Right, okay.
And then I put the police report in your packets as well. I didn't see anything on here that really stands out in the last 12 months. So.
Who put the starred asterisk near violation number 35 there?
I guess.
Of all things, there's a Boy Scout award here. It says found property at the convenience store. So somebody called the police because they found something. Instead of something being stolen, apparently they found something. How nice.
And then the consent map, we did get one card back in opposition, and that it actually is from the church.
The church, okay.
From staff's recommendation, we have recommended denial. We didn't feel it met the criteria for granting a variance to separation distance. There is economic use of the property as a C2 property, as a whole list of permitted uses. So we didn't feel that it met those criteria. So we have recommended denial of that variance to separation, and without that variance to the separation, we can't grant the conditional use permit. So,
okay.
Any questions?
Don't hear any, Bert. Thank you. Applicant, representative of the applicant?
Honorable Chair and Board, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk about our situation. My name is Suresh Kumar. I lease and...
Just a second. Can you want that spelled, Bert?
How do you spell it?
Yes,
it might be on the application.
Yeah, Kumar
Okay,
and Associates.
all right.
Kumar and Associates.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
Thank you. I lease and manage the business for almost 2 years.
I need your address too. That's it.
727 Southeast 14th.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, since I took over the business, I do a responsible, clean business there. It's a big facility. It's a BP gas station. Since I took over, we changed the business ethics there. I do run a very clean facility. I have about 10, right now, directly I support 10 families, 10 employees. Indirectly, I have a couple other employees helping the business. We have mainly the gas station. That's the main business, the revenue. In addition to that, to create some revenue to make even, to break even, I try to do, we have the kitchen with the Chester chicken facilities. And a couple of employees work there. When I started the business, I started going for 24 hours so that I can keep it clean and no much hassle or nothing. It was going at very big loss. So just cut down the hours. It went down to from 24 hours to 21 hours. Now I open up at 5 o'clock and go up to 2 a.m. in the morning. I have 3 employees working on the register or the point of sale, and 2 employees at the kitchen side. And then still it was not, I'm not breaking even because of the lease and the overhead is very high there. It's a big facility, I mean, compared to what I anticipated. I did not expect when I got into this business that this much would be the expense. Then I started off getting some other ideas to get some more business there. Recently I got into a franchise for a wireless phone system. iWireless brought in there. A couple of employees who work there. that is also at a big loss. We haven't even sold a single phone there since I started for the last 3 months on the iWireless. It's not doing very good. But overall, we are not doing really not that bad, but I believe I can break even. If I give the breakdown of the business, our business right now, about 60 to 65% main business is on the gas. 9.5 to 10% of the business is tobacco and alcohol. That is a daily to monthly average business. Kitchen food is almost about 79%. I get the kitchen business, and the rest of them seasonal business, including hats and gloves and all kinds of seasonal items. If it is summertime, summer food and things like that. So that is how the break even. That is how I survive there. But before I took over this business, I believe the previous management had the liquor license in a specific area. When I took over, license was already gone. I tried to apply, but I didn't know the whole process of how to get into the license. But I'm learning the business now. Hopefully, if I get the variance granted, I would do a diligent, clean business, clean operation. Hopefully, make a break-even business there. That's what I'm hoping to. And about the variance, the neighbors, they talked about some of the residences. We talked some of the residences. I believe some of them even have signed saying that they have no objection of getting variance for this liquor license to be there. I can show that, if you want, I can give you some of them. Some of them are willing to even sign for that. And even being responsible of recently, we have been given from the Iowa Alcohol Beverage Division gave me a clean sheet saying they are very pleased to see that how we run the business, especially not selling to the minor. I have the letter from the ABD saying that how pleased they were not on a sting operation. Our employees haven't sold for the minor any alcohol or any cigarette since we took over. And one of the other things also, we have strict instruction. Everybody come in the job have to get the license. Not the, what do you call that, certification program from the ABD. And also we remind them after a certain time, they have to go and read through so that we check the IDs. I believe in doing some checks. That's my personal belief. So that is something. And economically, we are not doing very good because I'm not working there full time, or it's not actually a family business. That's one of the reasons I cannot compete with the big business like Q-Trip or anybody else. Our gas is expensive. We get the gas from BP, and the gas is expensive. But still, we try to match the price with the neighbors. Next door, Q-Trip and all those gases. We try to match the price. So I'm not running a big profit business now. Hopefully, if I could get the alcohol license, I could add a bit more to the business and hopefully break even. That's my thought.
Okay. Questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Tony Desan. I live on 5209 Dakota Drive, West Des Moines. I'm the owner of the property. To tell you the real situation of property, I've been struggling with this property from a long time. I'm paying almost, when it was built, they did the prediction, okay, this gas station will be to so many gallons. And based on that, I did it. And my mortgage is almost $12,000 a month. I have to pay the property taxes. Even the lease is $7,500. Couple of times, he couldn't make it, he gave me $6,000. So I cannot either, I talked to attorney, he said, you have a choice. Go to the bank, tell them, you can't make any more payments, declare the bankruptcy. And I'm the kind of the guy, fight it. So I started another small business so I can feed this business. So I can show you the paper, how much my mortgage is, how much of my property taxes is. Every month, even leasing this property, I'm losing $4,000 a month, maybe more. And he couldn't even make with $7,500. And last year, I was diagnosed with the cancer. And my doctor told me, you cannot stand and work over there. So I started going into different directions. So they treated me, and I have to go for again, every year, a routine checkup and every 3 months further checkup. And I don't know what to do either. Declare a bankruptcy, he's my friend, he tried to help me. He's struggling, it's like, I don't know, like, it's just like humble request, or maybe like, if I know he's not gonna make a fortune, at least if he can make a mortgage, or whatever, like, he's working for the state as well. So if somebody is like, doesn't have other income, there's no way somebody can run this business. So all my request is like, if you can please help us in this tough situation. My health doesn't allow me. If you want, I can show you my doctor's note, or like I was treated here in Mercy Hospital like a little over a year ago. And if I stand more than 4 or 5 hours, like my body starts feeling pain. And when I started this business, I used to work 12, 14 hours a day just to save some money. Now he's struggling, and I don't know what to do or what to say or, so that's all.
I understand. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in support? Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff?
I'm not sure if this is a question for staff or not, but there's a Get-Go Cattywampus cross street.
And they do not have a Class C liquor license, so they only sell wine and beer.
Okay, so are there any other locations close by there?
Aren't within a quarter mile that sell
No.
the alcoholic liquor.
And I'm just curious, Bert, if you might know this, in general, Get and Go doesn't sell liquor at any of their stores, do
They
they?
haven't applied.
Right, okay. We know Come and Go has, we know Quick Trip has, but Get and Go as a general business model, I do not believe they do.
We haven't seen any of the
Okay.
Get-Go's or the Casey's come in, which.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? Thanks, Bert. Close the public portion, go to board decision.
So here's my question to my colleagues. Who spends time down here and is familiar with this neighborhood? Can you raise your hand?
I've been down.
Okay. I go by this place 2 to 4 times a day. I stop there once in a while. Apparently, I need to go in there more. It's a very nice gas station. When you look at what's on this map, everything on the east side of the map, though, by and large, it's dilapidated, it's run down, property values are declining here. I don't know, there's no resurgence plan for this area. The last thing I want to see is a closed gas station on this street corner. I don't want to see a liquor store, though, either. But I don't want to see a closed gas station. And when we look at the criteria we've got here for granting variances, there's only one of the issues that he can't meet, and based on that radius there, we're catching about half of that property's right on the fringe. And I don't know much about the property, but that's kind of the thing here. That's the monkey wrench in it. And I know the church sent the card in, but it was explained in the letter probably what the variance concern was. So it's pretty easy to mark, nah, we don't like it. There's no problems with this business. If you look at and I drive by there a lot, never see any problems. Place is always clean. But if you look at the reports here, there's only one that specifically notes the address here. And it was a positive thing. Somebody found something. This is Highway 69 here, major commuter road. There's going to be a few violations. I'm surprised I haven't had a traffic accident down there running into people myself. But I'd hate to throw this place under the bus if we could find a way to keep them viable. We've had a few more that have been like that. They've said, hey, basically, I'd have to completely close. And when I look at viability, use of the land, is there any other profitable use? I would contend there probably isn't. When you got 3 huge gasoline tanks in the ground, that's a liability for you if you ain't using them. It's not just we easily convert a gas station to a Curves for Women site. You get in trouble with the state of Iowa if you close this and don't close your tanks properly and clean it up, and no real estate agent's going to want this. I know we've got a big threshold on looking at variations and special conditional use permits for these liquor stores, but I think if there'd be a reason to do one, there's nobody else around here close by, there's plenty of separation, and this is probably the best thing we've got in the neighborhood. Polito's Pizza moved around the corner, though, so.
I know.
Mr. Chair, I want to agree with what Mel has said, and I also have to commend the owner for trying some different things instead of just coming to us and saying, well, beer is not doing it, and the soda's not doing it and the gas, but, you know, he's tried some cellular sales, and he's tried chicken sales and food sales and a variety of things. So I think that's commendable that you try a way to keep your business viable. And I remember there used to be a really very seedy gas station there that I wouldn't stop at if I was out of gas. And now it's just so much nicer and so much better. I mean, truly, it's probably the jewel of that area.
Right, right. And the Get and Go's nice across the street, too,
Yes.
that was built.
The Get and Go is
But
very
yeah.
nice. They do a good job.
Flat's Tire looks nice down
Yes.
there. There's some nice businesses.
They're starting to show some improvement in the area. And I would certainly hate to see an empty location.
Right. And I'm not sure this is the magic solution here for them
Right.
by itself.
It certainly will help.
Right.
What about the fact that that they don't meet the 500-foot separation?
Right.
Right. With the 500-foot separation, I'm assuming, well, this is the radius map for those that weren't interested. The only thing that they're violating in the 500-foot separation, though, is the small church property. I don't believe we have multiple things or a large venue like a big park. And the way the separation works, there is an entire half block between them. The church isn't on the same street. And I just don't see that it's that incongruent of a use that it would negatively impact the church and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one violation. If we had parks and 3 or 4 churches and all kinds of stuff and a massive apartment complex next door, you know, this is very low density in this area.
Do we end up with a Get and Go in here next month?
Get and Go in general, I can't speak for them, but it's my understanding that they haven't applied for any anyway.
Yeah, I haven't seen any.
And they do sit close and compete with some of the other gas stations in
But
town.
if they get one, then that puts them right in competition.
Can you show us the 500-foot map? Do you have a map?
I didn't print it off.
I would guess it may, well, what's the radius for the notifications? 3?
It's 250.
250.
Double that.
So where Get and Go is, would they be outside of the 500 anyway? Of course, Get and Go could then run into the,
If Get and Go would come in, if this is granted today, then Get and Go would have to provide a quarter-mile separation from any Class E liquor license, so they wouldn't need that separation distance from this business.
and the new Get and Go's been there for 3 years, and I remember Chris Diebel was in front of us, and I said, well, if we grant you signs for your grocery store, what about Dolls and Hy-Vee? He says, well, let them apply. And then you consider them individually. That's the way that I would look at this. I can't look at what Get and Go may or may not do.
Well, but what I think I'm trying to find from Bert, if we grant it here, that pretty much eliminates Get and Go because they're well within.
Right, but then maybe they'd have 2 strikes against them because they'd still be within 500 feet of the church and another existing one. And that's kind of my main point. We've only got one thing of concern here. Otherwise, I'm assuming they wouldn't be in front of us.
Yeah, I guess my concern with this is that this business is under tremendous pressure to meet that lease. You have a pretty stiff lease agreement that you have to meet. And it looks like you're trying to leverage liquor sales to sort of mitigate that gap, that profit margin gap that, and, you know, I don't know. I think that's a pretty tough equation to accomplish in order to make your business viable. You know, I think as a neighborhood activist, I'm really concerned about neighborhoods, and you know, with 190 feet, that just isn't much separation. I mean, if it was a 200 or 300 feet issue, it might be something different. But I think trying to enhance profit margins on hard liquor sales is kind of a tough sell for me.
She's got a good point. But I would guess that if somebody says, hey, well, I know I can buy, you know, some liquor here to take home, they're more inclined then to buy their tank of gas there. They're more inclined to say, hey, I'm going to buy 6 drumsticks of chicken and take home versus, nope, if they don't sell that, then I'm going to go to the other place that does and do all my business there. Because I would think his business model is, I just want to make more money off liquor. If they come in for that, they'll probably buy other products along the way. That's exactly how gas stations work. They don't make money on the gas, they make money on what they sell inside. And he'd have more inside sales with this, but it is what it is, so.
Yep.
Linda, any thoughts?
It's a tough one. And I think we have to look at the rules, and it's hard for me to allow liquor sales in all these gas stations, but it's Mel's area. He knows the area, so.
Jake, what do you think?
I think it is a nice gas station. However, at a $20 bottle, at 35% profit margin, they'd have to sell 4,153 bottles to bridge the gap in their rent.
He's going to sell more chicken, too. Yeah.
And this would stay with the property or with the business?
Property.
Can we limit the square footage of sales and these kinds of things? And I don't know if the
Size of the
applicant.
bottles?
I don't know if the applicant discussed that. Could we, Mr. Chair, could we ask the applicant, and I may not have recalled in his presentation, how much marketing he's going to do? I know we've said on some, hey, you're limited to, 4 feet of case at work or 4 feet of aisle.
I think if we're getting close to a decision, we can ask him, so.
He must have gifts there, because a coworker of mine brought me a cup that he had bought there.
See?
So they must sell coffee cups at some point.
But they have the name of the gas station on it?
No, it had something else on it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mel, it's your stage.
Yeah, just a question for you. You may have addressed this, I'm not sure, but what percentage of floor space or what percentage of like wall, case, aisle space are you thinking about having?
Thank you for asking that. I was planning to explain that, but I somehow spaced it out. My intent is to a consolidated area, not overall going for everywhere. Right now, if I get the license, get the variance granted, it will be right by where the cigarette and the behind the counter. That's where I'm planning to have the liquor. I don't want to have it on the open space because I don't want to have we get a lot of family coming in for food and especially right now, winter clothes. I have a lot of hats and gloves, all those kind of things we are selling, winter clothes. Summertime, we sell sandals and other kinds of stuff. So a lot of kids come for the soccer complex and all those things. So my plan is, as I mentioned, I'm a responsible, rule-oriented person. That's what I believe in. So we would definitely restrict to a specific area right by the kitchen, and the behind the counter area is the liquor access.
So behind the counter, is your counter no more than, let's say, 8, 12 feet long, something like that?
Oh, it's a bigger area. It's a big space, and we may expand a bit more and put some nice shelves and all those things. Rearrange the cigarette area now. Wherever we have the cigarette, we'll rearrange it and put more space for the shelvings and all those.
Well, I'm not sure where we're heading here, but you might want to put something on the table as what you think your dimension would be.
I had those things in I took some pictures, but in fact, I was trying to print it out. I couldn't print it out. That's too bad about that.
On the assessor record, they show building footprint. One's the canopy, one's the.
Looks like 4,000.
That's.
This is the building, right?
Yeah, that's the building.
That's the building.
So what's that interior? What's the interior squiggle there? What is that outlining?
This is I believe this is the counter area. There could be.
Is there a wall in there then that's dividing?
Wall in the back, and this is the counter area. So this is the area where I will have confined the liquor.
Bert, what's the general width of that building? Is it 95 feet there? What's
It says 95.
so 40? So there's maybe a 35 foot in that little zone there.
That's pretty good size for us, His idea is to have the access so that when customers come in, we have, the liquor. The people come and see, we used to have liquor, what happened? They commonly ask that question. So that's it. It's not that we don't want to leave it on the general vicinity where the beer and the wine and all those things are there. We just confine that to specific area, restrict the specific area, and sell it responsibly. That's why my intent is if I would get the license or the permit.
Okay.
Good enough?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I'm interested.
well, I do a lot of tinkering around, building shelves, lumber work, et cetera. Things come in 8-foot sections. So what about 16 feet of behind-the-counter frontage space? That'd be 2 8-foot shelves side to side. I don't know if that's how standard commercial marketing shelves come, but.
So you're saying let them have it?
And no more than 16 feet of face space behind the counter. If he wants to have a shelf from floor to ceiling, I don't care, but, you know, I know we've had people before that said, oh, well, we're going to have milk over here in the corner, and then 90% of the floor space is the booze. If he's going to operate as a family-friendly gas station, Chester Fried Chicken, cell phones, other fun things, and he's got less than 16 feet of space to sell that, and it's behind his counter, I don't think he'll be the next liquor store hangout.
All right, Mel, I'll take that as a form of a motion then?
We'll give it a stab here. Let's see. I'd make a recommendation to approve the requested conditional use permit and variance to allow the existing gas station convenience store to sell alcoholic liquor. And as a conditional item, I would add in counter space shall be limited to no more than 16 foot in width and shall be behind the counter, not accessible to customers directly.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
When you say 16 feet in width, do you mean 16 feet total space? I mean, can the shelves be, you know, 8 inches?
I don't care how deep they are because,
It's still just 16.
yeah, you just got 16 feet of faced product there.
Okay.
16 feet wide.
16 feet by some depth, because then we have an area that we can enforce.
I mean, like.
Okay. 16 feet by standard shelving depth, which would be no more than 24 inches, 2 feet.
Oh, that's, I'm not sure they're that wide, are they?
18, 24 inches. I don't want to split hairs here.
I mean, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of your kitchen counter, because you used to work at a grocery store, right? Yeah, see? Shelf stocker. Okay, so those are 3 foot deep.
So they go 2 foot or 18? What's your?
2 foot then.
All right. You know, it's a tough one. I hate to keep looking at this, but
16 foot wide and 2 foot deep. Don't care how tall they are.
there's nothing else around there.
He's got a good track record. I don't know of any big crimes being committed down there. I never see the cops there. The worst thing we had, some poor old guy was crossing the street, I think in a motorized wheelchair, and got hit. That's the last big news that was down there. There's a lot of industrial truck traffic that comes through there, and I think that's probably some of the customer base.
It's not a lot of residential.
There's
I cut
not.
through there to come on
There's not.
Maury down on,
Right.
so I go by there all the time.
And I don't want to disparage other property owners to any degree, but even the city doesn't take care of the streets or improve them down there. It's washboards. That burned-out building is a block north of there.
Yep.
I don't want to pile more misery on the guy than he's got trying to keep a decent business in a kind of tough neighborhood that's maybe been bypassed and neglected.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that, you know, if it's the only place down there, it's mostly commercial, and it can come back to us, because the city council will take a look at that as well. Nobody showed up here in opposition. We just got one card. Boy, I might go with you there, Mel.
Okay, so I got a motion out there.
It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-2. Let's see you make it work. Normally, I would not vote for that, but I did. Oh, brother.
Well, see what happens.
You guys, well, you can all kick me off the board now. Item 12 is a variance at 4411 Southeast 14th Street.
Next month.
Next month, yeah. All right.
All right, moving along.
Didn't know I came to the funny bone today.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is a property that's currently developed as a car wash, full service, with, I guess not full service in terms of manual, but it's got an automatic, it has automatic bays and self-serve bays with vacuum, self-serve vacuums. It's located along the southeast 14th Street corridor. There's actually a grade difference, and I'll show you the photos a little bit. So the height of the grade of the street here is probably just a little bit below the roof line, the ridge line on the roof of the car wash after you get those grades. In 2009, this property was issued a sign permit for an electronic display sign that was larger than 24 square feet. Now, that's a permitted type of sign in this district, and the area that they had was within the area that they earned, so they didn't need any special requirements in terms of their size of their sign. It's perfectly legitimate as it sits there as a sign. The issue is that signs that are electronic display that are larger than 24 square feet have to meet certain requirements, which they basically can't have anything that's not instantaneous change in display. So messages must change instantaneously. They can't sort of flow in and out of each other or transition. Mm-hmm. And then the other component of that is no sign can have animated display. So at the same time they adopted those provisions for electronic display, they also didn't allow signs to have animated display, which are defined as video display signs. And I tried to put all the applicable requirements here for you to chew on when you read the staff report, because there is a lot out there in the ordinance that's applicable here. So, the other provision is when they do change, they can't change more than they have to have a minimum of 8 seconds of display before they can change instantaneously. So they're asking for variances of all three of those provisions. The photo you see here is actually caught in mid animation of it's not necessarily a video like what we see on TV, but it is an animation in terms of it sort of continuously flows. I believe this basically fills up as these drop like snowflakes. I'm trying to describe how it happened without actually showing you a video. I took pictures over a 20-second time frame, and I believe it changed 5 times when I was out there. The same sign. So they're obviously wanting that transition to occur quickly to get a number of messages. So that's essentially their motivation. The issue is when the city council approved these provisions, which was actually prior to the issuance of the permit, the intention was that signs of a certain size of electronic display were an issue in terms of distraction, and in aggregate, if these were allowed throughout the corridor, would become a problem in terms of visual noise, distraction for the motorists. So the intention of the ordinance is to not allow signs of this size to be able to have those features. So from the staff's perspective, we believe by granting this, there's no demonstration of any hardship that says if we don't have this sign, we're not going to be able to function on this property with the use that we have, or we won't have, there's nothing that says there couldn't be some type of successful business on this property unless this sign is given. So staff had a struggle in terms of trying to see the way that this would meet the test of variance in order to grant the provision. I think from the ability to animate, the council's intention was very clear when they adopted these provisions. They don't want any sign in any part of the city to have animation, whether it's large or small. So even the signs that are 24 square feet or smaller should not have animated display. And so we've had an enforcement kind of, I don't know, what do you call it, movement, Sue? Or a focused enforcement on these types of signs. And so this is coming about as a result of that focused enforcement on signs that have animation or movement or flash or transition too fast. So in this case, this wasn't something they were allowed to do previously, and the ordinance change caught them up. This was a situation where these provisions were in place and then the sign permit was issued later. So I did want to make that clear. In this case, staff believes that there's not a demonstration of the unnecessary hardship provision to grant the variance. We believe that allowing these variances would go against the intent of the zoning ordinance, and we're recommending denial. Excuse me.
Eric, now, this is just a sign for the car wash, right? It's not an advertising billboard.
Well, I think there was some point in time where there may have been a complaint or a violation that it was off-premises messages as well.
Okay.
When I was out there, I didn't see that.
And I have, as I drive through town, I don't recall ever seeing any other car wash have this kind of signage.
Well, I think
anybody
there's
else
other car washes that might have electronic display signs. I can't really speak to whether. I can't really speak to whether they have
But I don't think
the
it's
same
like
violations.
like a wild billboard type sign.
A wild billboard sign?
To me, this looks like another version of a billboard.
Well, that's what I was getting to.
There's-
Yeah.
Well, it certainly,
I mean,
has,
are they
it
selling-
certainly has the capability. The difference it would have if, from a billboard, of course, is that billboards are displaying advertising that doesn't relate to the business that's on the
But
site.
show me those, can we look at those pictures? Because, I mean, as you went through them, I thought, well, what does this have to do with a car wash?
Well, I mean, it talks about what they provide.
Vacuums,
Wait,
service
what? Full
bays.
bays?
Yeah. And
They
then
accept credit cards.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything that indicated, advertising for other types of businesses.
Oh, wait, okay, that says all bays.
They offer
And
the ability for
Ford
you to
vacuums.
fundraise using their facility.
Do you
Which is
fundraise
something that they offer on site. So
All right.
I didn't see anything that,
Oh.
in this advertising that was contrary. They are not asking for an off-premises sign here either, so I guess the assumption would be that they're in compliance with that right now.
Okay.
Eric, I have a question. I see the wooden fence there on the right-hand side of the picture. That's a property boundary line. There's a property to the north.
It's quite a ways north, yeah.
What is that property zoned as? Is that residential of some type?
Let's see here, I got the zoning map here. It may be residentially used.
It was a former mobile home court, but I believe there's been discussions
Yeah,
about.
that fence may have preceded. When
Right.
they built this site, it's in likelihood we required the buffer yard.
Right,
provision
but
under our
kind of
site.
what I'm getting at, though, regardless, is it zoned residential to the north or not? I can't tell from this.
Not in that area.
Okay,
This is
okay.
completely within the depth.
It's still
area that's zoned
C2?
commercially on the corridor.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Hello, Mark Lyle. I live at 4217 Southeast 4th Court.
Anything you want to show on top
Yeah.
of here?
Can I give this to them?
Yeah.
I printed off a little of everything. I didn't know what to bring. I'm not used to doing this. I apologize. My wife and I own this. We bought it 7 years ago. We've always wanted to. My wife has a full-time job. I have a full-time job, and we do this on the side. So pretty much every night and weekend, I'm down there scrubbing out windows and taking care of cars.
Do you have a phone?
What's that?
I'll get one for one of them.
I have another one. Can I give it to you at the end?
Yep. Are you using it in your presentation?
A little bit, yeah, if I can.
Here, I'll just give it to you right now. I'll just share and I can share.
On that first page there, it shows you 7 years. I live on the south side. I live just a mile straight west to where the car wash is. This is how we go to work. This is how we go home. I take care of the property. That's what I would want if I was going there to do it. And so that's what I try to do. 4 years ago, we want to get something, you know, if you look around us, we have dirt all the way around us. To the north of us is the city-owned dirt that they took down that trailer court. Behind us is 4J had that property and still does. To the south of us is a blank empty lot. We have an empty lot. We need to do something to at least make me stick out and see there. So we basically got a permit or talked to Joe, and we had this meeting about this and what we wanted to do and to do this sign. And what we're doing is this is advertising for me so people can see that we're here. Because if you drive by, you're looking at my rooftop. You're not looking at the bottom. We're quite a ways down from the street. I don't have that picture. I apologize. But if we, that's a picture of the existing sign, or the previous sign that we had. It just said Ultimate Auto Wash. It didn't have anything to stick out. You'd drive by and you wouldn't even see it. There's nothing to do that. So we went ahead and talked to Joe. We got a permit with Eagle Sign, and they got a permit from the city. If you zoom in right here on this, or look on the second page, it says a viewing what's it say? Viewing area of 3 by 8. The sign was very expensive. It's $36,000 and some change. I kind of put that into a 10-year, 12-year advertising budget of, you know, at least that way I can get something. I do some stuff like that. We're zone C2. I mean, we don't have any houses around us. We're in a commercial lot. There's no homes around us at all, okay? I'm asking for 2 different rulings because I don't want to get these 2 bundled into one. One problem we have is the video. The other one is the 8 seconds that were issued. If you go to this page right here on the front, it said the viewing area is 3 by 8. That's 24 square feet. We are not over the 24 square feet and larger than. We're 24 square feet exactly. And we had this conversation with Joe and the sign manufacturer on my site. You know, do we want to go to a bigger sign? Do we want to go to a smaller sign? Do you want different stuff? And we talked about this, and they advised me that this sign was legal to do a full motion video and didn't have to have the hold time because that was already in effect with the billboards before that. So I knew that, but this sign was good to go. But if you could look and split those 2 up, I would greatly appreciate it because that video thing is separate from the 8-second thing. If you look at the 2A here, I did take a picture of the sign, and I'll put that right here. I took off the panels so you can see, and I have a couple pictures of the tape measures, but I took off 1 panel off each. They're a foot square. So if you go to the top up in here, they're 12 by 12 all the way across. So you can see that there's 8 panels wide and there's 3 panels tall. So there's some other stuff in here too. If you go to page 5 on this, I think the city just maybe misread from that. There's 2 different things. The size of the case is what we're talking about when they measured this here. It's not the sign of the active viewing area. It's, you know, the mount, the case. When you don't measure the pole when you're trying to cover the stuff. I mean, we're going by active area. So that's the one thing on page 5 that I want to make sure everybody pays attention to. If we go over to page 8, they have a couple different things here of definitions of that and what the definition of is LED in the video. We got the sign in good faith. I was told by Bob Knutson that that the sign was good to go, full video, everything. And we ran it that way for 4 years, up until, a couple of months ago that this was an issue. It's just something, and I talked to Sue about this, and Sue told me that you're just gonna have to make it hold. And she told me that they made a mistake. And it's like buying a pop can. Well, I made the wrong selection. Well, this is like $36,000. This isn't just like, oh, I can just buy another one tomorrow. I mean, this is like a hard-earned money that we made to do this. It doesn't make any sense to me. I am frustrated with the whole thing. But the viewing area and some of that stuff, we're not over 20 square feet. We are 24 square feet. We bought the sign because it was legal to have full motion and we didn't have to hold any of it. If you go over to page 9, it's got some more of that stuff. It's got them, I think they just literally did miss the measure, the whole thing. On the application, it's got the size of it, but if you go back to the very second page, it says the size of the cabinet, and then it's got the viewing area. So that's kind of what they're doing. I think they just looked at that and ran with it and made a mistake. If you go to page 12, it's got the same thing with the permit and the sign and the LEDs. The only comment I've ever had on my sign at all is people would say, "Oh, that's the one with the LED sign," or "That's this," and I don't care how they write. And you can tell I didn't put the name really big. I want them to know that we're a car wash and we have this stuff. You can call me whatever you want. It's the car wash you want to go to. The only thing that I've ever had people say, other than it's a nice LED sign, is I missaid accept. I spelt it the wrong way, and I got people calling me, telling me, like, you gotta spell it the other way. Sorry.
Accept or accept.
Exactly. Spell check, and this is great. We've had it for 4 years. We've never had any accidents, never had any problems. Nobody's complained on either one that I am aware of. You have the bar across the street, you got security lock, which they called me going, "Hey, what do you want me to do with this thing?" Because they weren't sure which way they wanted to do. I talked to them and they said they didn't do anything. OK Tire or Scott's Automotive across the street also called me. Well, what's going on? Knutson's does business with me, but they've never said anything one way or the other.
That's the transmission shop, right?
Yes, yeah. That's correct. Just north of me, there's an empty lot in between me and...
Which was the old mobile home court, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, that wooden fence is not on the property line, so that's another separate issue. Yeah. There's like 12 feet, 14 feet in there. Hardship. I mean, this is money that I spent. I mean, I have a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job. We run this on nights and weekends. My job is really roly-poly, so I'm around quite a bit. But this is my 401k is what I tell everybody. This is what I do. It's the way to get ahead and try to stay ahead. It's a nice, clean facility. I take care of my customers, and I answer the phone when they call. To say it's not a hardship is not even close. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't a hardship. I mean, I don't spend $64,000 or $36,000 every day. I mean, I just don't. I mean, it's a lot of money, and it's something that I would feel that would be difficult. I guess I would like to be grandfathered in, and I know the rules were there, but like Sue said, we made a mistake, is what she told me, right. Like 2 months ago, and trying to figure this whole thing out. So, okay. And all due respect, I mean, I went down to the city here this week trying to figure out, I want to get the rules. They gave me this. Like, how am I supposed to know?
We all have to memorize that to be on this board.
I work hard, and I sleep good at night. I don't have time to do that.
Right.
I rely on the city to do that, and we did this for 4 years. We were fine. And something happened, and sorry.
About 1 minute, wrap it up.
Yeah. That's really all I got. I just want to say thank you for your patience and everything else. So,
okay.
Mel.
Mark. I obviously spend my money in Des Moines because I drive by your place 2 to 4 times a day, and I go to your car wash.
Oh, thank you.
And you have a very nice car wash, and all the people in my neighborhood go there too. And a lot of my friends in Indianola that drive to and from to get downtown go there. I don't think people don't know you're there. And I think the sign you've got helps them, see that you're there. But if we look at these appeals you've got, and we'll probably have to talk to staff about this, if you've got less than 24 square feet of display area, well, then maybe that's not an appeal you need, but I guess we'd have to discuss that. But the idea of this, the video part of it, video display, I would like to have that explored a little bit more, and I might have to ask staff about that. Is there a way we could meet in the middle with you?
The only time I do videos, because we were talking about this even today, I wasn't too concerned about the videos. The only time I do videos is like Christmas time. If you remember, I had a snowman fall out of the sky,
Right.
Santa going by.
But that's not going to convince me to stop your business.
No, and that's true. But it's a nice gesture, I guess, for the holidays and that stuff. I would really not like to give up the video. If the video is the deal, I would consider that. It would hurt me. I would be sad to give that up, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. The 25-second or the 8-second hold time would be, and the wording says over 24 square feet, and I am not.
Right. And we'd have to discuss that, but that's an important thing for me because, again, you live there and I live there, and we all know Southeast 14th has been improving, but we all know, too, and I wouldn't want to see that we've got a bunch of video signs and all kind,
And I understand.
One might be okay, but, it comes back to then if we got a whole bunch up and down 14th, a little different than the liquor store issue, then suddenly we've really turned that stretch of highway and street into something that probably doesn't reflect well on any of us. And trying to keep signs reasonable yet informative, I think, is a goal for all of us here.
Yep.
So it might take some more discussion between us and staff here to kind of see where these appeals really are for you. But I do want to reiterate, you do have a good business, and I appreciate how you've kept your property up. I always feel safe when I'm there, and it's a nice place.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support?
Joe Phillips with Eagle Sign, 5130 Park Ave.
Hi, Joe.
Hello, man. When Mark first approached me about purchasing a sign, we talked about size, and he wanted the biggest one he could have, and he wanted the video option. And so then I went to the development permit department, and it was Bob Knutsen's territory, and I talked to him, consulted with him about this is what he'd like to do, and well, if he wants to do any video clips or anything like that, it's got to be no larger, the active area no larger than 24 square feet. So I went back and told Mark that, and that's why he has an active area that is 3 feet tall and 8 feet wide. So it gave him the option to play little video clips of Santa Claus or whatever, which he doesn't do a lot of, but it gave him the option to do that when he wanted to. So as his sign representative, I consulted with the city development permit department, told them what the situation was. Bob Knutsen said, hey, it's 24 square foot or smaller, you can play video clips on it. And that was really the determining factor on the sign that he bought and the size. And we applied for the permit, and we were given a permit for that. So I just want to be clear that we tried, we did what we were supposed to do. And now, 4 years later, we're hearing, hey, we're out of code. So when I talked about it, I really thought when I sold him the 24th, we were within code and everything was legit. And, we were within city code, the sign ordinance, so.
I think we're going to get something over here shortly. Any questions? Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition? SUANNE, looks like it's your stage.
Thanks. SUANNE Donovan, Zoning Enforcement Officer, Board, Chair and Board. Apparently, again, I said there was a mistake. What I meant when I was talking to him was, Mr. Lyle, was to say, the ordinance says there's no video display in the city. The reason that we do that is a safety reason. You don't want video display on streets where cars are driving and drivers get distracted.
Right.
So he came in for a permit and it said message center. The attachment shows a video static display. And I looked up the specs on the sign, and it appears very easy to change it from video display to static. We asked him to change it to 8 seconds like we do billboards and any other sign that has LED in the city. Well, he's not the only one that we're wrestling with this question on. It really is a matter of traffic safety. There is no, in my opinion, loss of use of the property because he can't show Santa Claus or some other video display. He can do the advertising in 8-second bites just like the billboards do. He gets the full use of the sign. We're not restricting it. We're not making him take it down. We're not making him shut it down or anything else. It's not about that. In fact, the ordinance is clear on it. You just can't have video display. We're trying to get these signs back under control to what is actually authorized by the ordinance. Here's a whole bunch of things from that website of the manufacturer, all of them showing video, or I mean, static copy changes. The LED is the wave of the future. I mean, it is the brightness, it's the color, it's the attractiveness, but it doesn't have to have video display to be a viable advertisement tool. And we're not trying to take that away from him. We're just trying to get our signs back under control with the ordinance that says absolutely no video display anywhere in the city. I don't see that he's got a hardship that he can't use the sign or can't make his business work if it's static for 8 seconds before it turns over.
So if he'd keep it at the 8 seconds, he doesn't need anything else from us. He can use that area, that lighted area, the way it is, just the message can't be in motion, and the message can't change more than once every 8 seconds.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So if we deny the appeal, is that exactly what happens?
That's kind of what I was leading to, yeah.
Mark, because we have the zoning enforcement officer come in, you're allowed one more chance here.
Two things, I guess. The ordinance, I believe, says over 24 square feet, and I am not over 24 square feet. The other is, I don't think you can throw the video with the 8-second hold. I think they're separate issues, and they're separate items on there. The other thing is, I mean, with the speed on that on the road, I mean, it's 40 miles an hour, but everybody's doing a lot more than that. It's either get the
I'll tell you exactly how fast we go.
It's either get the print small enough. I mean, you can't put enough words on there and still be able to see it when you're driving by. So I make the words big, I roll them over. You know, we do fundraisers and stuff like that. I want everybody to know that. So, you know, we do different things like that, and but you need the message to move at the speed the traffic's going. Otherwise, the print's so small, they won't be able to see it, or they're going to have to stop to read it. And so there are two separate issues with the video and the 8-second hold.
But Mark, as your customer and as somebody that drives on that street a lot, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time looking at anybody's readout. I'm going to look over there once, and it'll say, Lincoln High Car Wash, $1 off Saturday. That's good enough for me, but if you want to hit me with a message every 3 to 4 seconds on that thing, I ain't looking at your sign that
No, I just want you to catch one. So
so if it's 8 seconds, that's about the length of time I'm going to be in that stretch of road.
But to put enough stuff on there is sometimes difficult, you know, to get...
Well, I don't know if that's a separate problem you've got, or if you're trying to market too many things at once then. I don't know. I'm going to look for one quick message from you while I'm driving.
Right.
And I'm not going to be looking at your property for more than 8 seconds to wait for the next cool message that comes up.
I understand.
So maybe you just need to be selective that, hey, in the morning I'm going to run this message, in the afternoon I'm going to run this one, or I'm going to run 2 messages, alternate every 8 seconds. And then you'll catch me when I'm coming or when I'm going with 2 messages during the day.
And that's still true, but the rule says 24 square feet and more.
Okay.
More
well,
than
that's, you know, that's something staff's got to interpret. I don't know that that's my job here.
In the documents that I hand you, it says over 24 square feet, and I am 24 square feet. I'm not over 24 square feet. So it's different. I mean, I don't think you can put the two together.
Mark, let's see what SUANNE has to say, because that's really what we have to go by.
The ordinance says prohibited signs, video display signs.
Right.
In every district. You can't have video display.
If it changes less than every 8 seconds, that counts as video. Is that what you're telling me? In Mark's world, I think he's saying, well, just motion is video.
I'm thinking Santa Claus coming in on a reindeer
Right, so you're thinking motion is video.
And
What
that's
she's
fine.
saying, if it changes less than 8 seconds, it counts as video because it seems like it would be. Because you could do a short, quick animation of something by changing it once a second. You've got a progressive drawing.
And I don't have my notes here, but it's in there. But I mean, if I put up a word and it changes less than 8 seconds, that's not moving. I mean, the word changed.
Well, that's how motion pictures actually work. The image changes fast enough, it looks like it's in motion. And I think that's exactly what the city was trying to get away from, is having things that appear to be motion oriented. If you've got a good message up there, you know, you don't have to take down the sign, your 36 grand is not out the window. We're just trying to keep it.
If I was going to do that, well, no offense, I mean, I would have bought a monument sign, changed the letters at the bottom, and then on tomorrow I can change the letters again. I mean, I want it so it's simple, it's easy, I can do it there, plug it in, and go.
Right.
I mean, I bought this sign because it can change, you can program it way in advance and make it all.
Sure, which you can still do that. You could have 5 messages rotating, but just once every 8 seconds.
And I understand what you're saying, but on this end, I wouldn't have bought the sign.
Okay.
There's no way I would have bought it. I would have bought a monument sign, switched the letters up, and we're done. Tomorrow I'll do something different.
Okay.
And for the city to come back and change the rules going, I'm sorry, we made a mistake, you're going to have to change it. It is a hardship. I mean.
Okay.
Understand. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Okay, let's close the public portion, go to board decision.
I move
drive
staff
it, Mel.
recommendation.
Well, I've said where I'm at. I like what he does, but we need to be within some confines that are reasonable. Jake's got something out here.
Jake just made a motion.
Yep.
Jake, your staff?
I move staff.
Okay. I hear a second.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0.
I'll stop down more often.
There we go. Item 13 is the conditional use permit at 218 6th Avenue.
In front of your chairs, I put copies of the letters of support he submitted, and then also copies of police reports for the subject property, and then police reports for the property where he is currently operating his business. Here's the The appeal, or the conditional use permit, would allow for the downtown pantry to open up on the ground level of the Fleming Building, which is at the southwest corner of Walnut Street and in 6th Avenue. Until about 2 months ago, the applicant was operating the downtown pantry within the Hotel Randolph building. As you're probably aware, that building is currently going under renovation, so they've had to vacate that space, and they're wanting to reopen about 2 blocks to the northwest. So here's the layout that they've submitted. North is actually to your right, so you'd come in the door off of 6th Avenue. There would be some coolers around the edge. Looks like the beer cooler would be at this corner. Then the counter and the registers are at the north end, and they're showing the liquor and wine would be behind the counter there. Here's a picture of the Fleming Building. You can see it's an 11-story building. They would be operating out of the ground level on the Walnut Street side, or I'm sorry, the 6th Avenue side. Here's just the view of that facade. And then here's the tenant space. It would be these 3 windows with an entrance here in the middle. And the consent map, we got a couple cards back in opposition, and I believe one, I guess these are from the EMC properties, and then the NAP card is actually the subject property. And then the police records, I didn't see anything that jumped out at me at either the proposed location or the current or the previous location on 4th Street. But that said, We still don't believe that a small grocery store selling a lot of wine, liquor, and beer would be compatible with the character of the neighborhood. The Fleming building does contain many apartments on the upper levels of the building. There are several other apartments in the area. The Equitable building to the north is being converted to residential use. We're also concerned about the high number of, or the number of taverns on Court Avenue. We don't feel that having a business where the packaged liquor can be purchased for off-premise consumption really blends with that character of the Court Avenue Entertainment District. So we have recommended denial of the appeal. So, are there any questions?
No?
Bert, the appellant was recently operating this kind of same general business in the Randolph Hotel building, right? So they were selling beer, wine, and or liquor there.
They were,
Did
yes.
they have to have a conditional use permit at that time?
Not when they went in. They would have had to obtain one after December 31st of this year. So.
Because all the things you're concerned about with where they want to move to, I would think you would have been concerned about where they used to be.
Right.
But that was not an issue at the time. Okay.
When they went in there, it was allowed by right.
Okay.
But in 2012, the council changed the regulations to require conditional use permits for all of the.
Okay. Because it was in a residential former, hotel building. It was near other bars, So
just like the one we had a couple months ago.
And it's the exact same people, yeah.
Right, on East Grand.
333 East Grand.
Yeah. Which we did
No, I was
approve.
thinking over on University.
Oh, the one at East 27th and University.
Oh, yeah.
Back with Joe.
Smoking
Yes.
Joe's. That was,
Okay.
yeah, it's different.
Right, yeah. Yeah, different layout,
Yeah, and that
situation,
was for
size.
Different layout, but theirs was going up in December.
But they had a permit that was going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
That was for a full-fledged liquor store.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
would just
because they
be
didn't need permission before.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a limited food sales establishment, which would require their alcohol and tobacco sales to be under 40% of the business's total sales.
Whereas it was the other way around for that other facility.
They were selling tobacco, so there was no way they could have kept the tobacco and
That was their
alcohol at
primary
40%.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
And I'd also point out this is in the C3 district, which does not have any separation distance requirements from other churches, schools, parks, or daycares, or other Class E.
Does not.
Yeah.
Are there any other locations near this area that would provide these types of services for the residents who live there?
Yeah, there is one. I think I put it in the staff report.
Where would that? On Court?
What about Walgreens?
We're closer to yeah, I don't know if Walgreens actually sells beer, but yeah, I think the Hawkeye Pantry was one that's just 2 blocks to the north. I think on the Skywalk level.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, since we don't have separation distances as a requirement in the C3, you just still have a concern with the general neighborhood and character.
Right.
If they were not interested in selling liquor, but let's just say beer and wine, would that have any other change to your approach?
That would change it at all.
All right.
Yeah, the other one that's within the quarter mile is at 700 Grand Avenue.
Okay.
I believe that is the Hawkeye.
All right.
Mr. Chair, for the record, many times it's been published, I was one of 3 owners of the building. I am no longer a building owner, so that's just
Good.
clear.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, we need to put that on the table.
So you have no conflict of interest at this time?
Correct.
No, but it's good to know.
Yes.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Applicant, representative of the applicant?
Hi, my name is Shahid Mahmood, live in 612 East Jackson Avenue. That's my wife.
And I'm Aileen Mahmood, and I live at 612 East Jackson Avenue as well.
Yeah, we are here today because we was part of the Randolph, and originally they told us our last day was August 31st, and we have to move. And then they come back and told us we cannot be there till December, possibility maybe January, February, but they ended up not giving us not even a 30-day notice, and we have to move out. And we was looking for something close. And we cannot consider ourselves as a small grocery store, not just a liquor store. We cannot acquire state 60-40, which was going to have 40% only, including tobacco, alcohol, and 60% to be other than just the tobacco, beer, and cigarette or anything else. And we do carry fresh produce and fresh meat and stuff, and that's our main goal. It is to stay in a downtown and give the downtown community what we did provide for past 3 years. We don't have any single incident against us in the previous location. The only reason we're moving because the part of the Hotel Randolph has got sold out.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I understand everything here correctly, but if you weren't granted this conditional use to sell wine, liquor, or beer,
Right.
would you still open the store at the new location and sell?
They'll be open, but I think it's going to be very hard to survive
Okay.
without beer. Because we definitely is going
The
to.
rent is kind of
Pricey.
pricey in the
We're
Fleming
paying
building,
more rent,
but-
pretty much the same, the square footage. And to avoid that, we're not gonna carry, just like our old location, we don't have any small, we're gonna try to limit it area.
Sure.
Not just go too much huge on a beer or liquor. It's just to provide the people come in, they can have one-stop shop, they be able to get their cereal, milk, grocery, whatever, and then
Yeah, we're
something to
not
go
trying to
drink with
promote
that.
the beer and liquor. That's
Okay.
just a convenience.
Right.
You know, if you're gonna go, so you don't have to go 3 different stores, you can just go to one store and that's it. That is why we have the meat and the produces. I mean, we
Yeah, so I
carry
think
all,
that's.
we're like a little miniature grocery store.
Yeah,
just like
that
a
drawing that,
Walmart.
that the staff showed, can you put that up there again?
Sure.
Floor plan.
They have a little one there, which we approved. So where would the alcohol sales be here in the picture again? Remind me.
Alcohol will be right in this area, which will not be more than 12 feet shelf. We can have the wine also, and then we can have tobacco product, which is the people smoke their own, roll their own tobacco, it's like come in a bag, and also the cigarette and stuff.
So the alcohol would be less than 12 foot wide
Right, alcohol will be just less than 12 feet.
of all types?
All
Okay.
types. And then we,
And is that behind the counter or?
Yes, that's
Okay.
behind the counter.
Because that's your counter there you're showing
right, this
also.
is across the counter.
Cash registers and
All
stuff there?
gonna be behind,
Okay.
yes. And also, we can have at least a 15, 16-door cooler altogether, and we can provide beer with only just the 4-door. And all other is gonna be soda, your milk, and fresh produce. In our previous history, we were selling milk, which is more than the few places our route.
Oh, yeah.
We was getting delivery 3 times a week, just the milk alone.
That's good.
So we try to stay in the downtown and give the community what we did in the past
Okay.
3 years.
But if you had your 12 foot of liquor behind the counter, you'd also want the cold alcohol, the beer,
That's the
out
only
in a
beer
cooler.
product. But the liquor, e-liquor class, which is
Right.
only be behind the counter.
Okay.
And it'd be very limited. It'd be
And wine would be behind the counter as well?
Wine would be also behind.
As part of that 12 foot?
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak in support?
Sorry, I'm freezing.
It is a little chilly.
It's cold in here.
My name's Jeremiah White, and I live at 200 Grand downtown. I'm just speaking as a resident of downtown. I don't see the sale of alcohol as being any kind of a nuisance at all. I don't drink, so this is coming from somebody who doesn't even drink alcohol. But I do a lot of things with like DG's Tap House, and I do some independent film work, and I've had a lot of people come in from out of town to the downtown area, in the hotels that are down there. Downtown, if they want to get something to drink, or it's just very convenient for people, entertainment, anything like that, to be able to go get tobacco products or get something to drink if they want to, as well as get food. Because a lot of the other places that are down there that provide that kind of thing are closed at like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. So you have people that come in that have a nightlife, that are out at like 10 o'clock at night, or some people don't even get off work till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So they are, this community down here needs to be a full service community. And I think that providing something like that would be helpful to the people that live down here.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? Hearing none, close the public portion, go to board decision. Wait, this is the last one. Usually, this is the express route.
Well, no. Oh, are you trying to lead here? When I travel to bigger cities in the U.S. and I stay in their downtowns and I look around or go to a convention center and stay at a hotel 6-8 blocks away and walk, I like to find places at street level where I can go in and buy a snack or buy something, take back to my hotel, like, some fresh fruit or milk or something like that. Well, yeah, then done that too. But it just seems, and Des Moines talks about this, and we think we do some of this, but if you're in downtown Des Moines after, I don't know what time, but certainly after business hours, I don't really see this stuff. I don't see it pop out, or maybe I don't know where it's at. I wind up at the Quick Trip over at High and 19th Street, and or High and 15th, wherever it's at. I don't know. It just seems to me like these kinds of things don't normally stick out to me when I'm in a bigger city if they're run well and they're not a liquor store. Just throwing it out there. I'm not saying I got an amendment or anything.
You know, I hadn't thought about that. I just spent a week in San Francisco and we stayed right downtown. And there were Walgreens, there were like 8 Walgreens within a few blocks, and you could walk in and get wine and beer and all of the things that this type of service would offer. And it was really nice. I mean, I went out at 9 o'clock and got wine, and it was very nice. So I can see where, I hadn't thought about that until you said it, but it makes sense.
Yeah, you know, I think the downtown area is a very vibrant environment, and so people are out and about until late. A lot of young professionals work a lot of hours. I have a 32-year-old son that must work, you know, as his mother, I'm on him all the time, but he lives in Washington, D.C., and you can go out. And there are these little mom and pop shops. And so, you know, it's nice not to have to work around variances, and I don't think it would have a negative impact really on the people that are living in downtown and living professional lives down there. I don't think I have a problem with this at all.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we're trying to promote is pedestrian traffic down there, so you don't have to hop in your car, drive to a place to find, get some of the things that you want in a convenience store.
And if the guy's getting 3 deliveries a week of for milk, I mean, you're not going to have to check the expiration label when you buy it. I think that's kind of neat to hear. What if we looked at maybe, you know, some of these discussions we've had with the other one, limited to like 12 linear feet behind the counter and no more than a 3-foot wide cooler, if that's how wide coolers are. I don't know. They 36 inches or so, your average Hobart cooler, grocery store.
Grocery store, yeah. I don't know if small shops like this have deep shelves like that.
Right, but just, you know, those pull doors at a Casey's, you know, when you open the door, it's about 3 foot wide, I think.
You think your arm can go back in there, it's probably at least 30 inches.
Yeah, I mean, the product facing is what's important to me. I don't, you know, care if they got cans stacked far back. It's the width. It's what's on display.
Right.
You know, you're only going to be able to probably market 6 brands of beer that way, not 20.
What about the liquor part?
Like maybe take that out, say beer and wine, but no liquor?
Have them come back for the liquor later?
I don't have a problem with the liquor part.
As long as you got 12 foot, that's a pretty small section. It's going to be liquor and wine, so.
You know, we got some pretty compelling letters from residents right in the area that say, you know, we'd like to have this, not just for themselves, but for their guests or friends,
Right.
or you decide to have somebody over. It's nice to be able to go someplace quickly and not have to walk 3 or 4 blocks or drive
Right.
somewhere.
And if it's behind the counter.
Let's put a motion out there, see where it goes.
Okay, I'd make a motion to grant a conditional use permit for a business to sell wine, liquor, and beer at 218 6th Avenue as presented, with a limitation that all liquor and wine shall be behind the counter.
12-foot counter?
A 12-foot linear shelf. I'm not going to worry about depth. And then any beer or cold alcohol shall be limited to a display of no wider than 3 feet.
Okay. Do we hear a second?
Second.
How wide was the beer display?
3 feet
A little worried there.
or standard dimension close to that based on an industry standard. Maybe they're 32, maybe they're 36, maybe they're 38, but, you know, 3
Leave
feet
that
plus or
open,
minus.
whatever the standard is?
Yeah, yeah.
A little
Of no larger than 6 inches greater. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A standard cooler that can, Should we just make it like it's no greater than 48 inches then? That's 4 foot wide. I don't think any. Right, right. It's got to be less than 4 feet. How's that?
I'm good.
Less than 4 feet.
You good with that, Sheree?
Then he'll find a cooler that fits that.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Woof, motion carried 6-0. Two things. One, next month's December, so we'll be over down the street, and depending on what happens December 3rd, we might have somebody buying over there.
Are we off the air tonight, by the way?
I never did see the thing go on. Did it go?
That lights broke. I went down.
Well, we would have behaved a whole lot differently if we thought we were on the air.
Well, it is on the air. You're on the
Hello, yeah, I know, I'm just teasing people.
Well, we do have one thing. We got to stay on the air for a second. Got to accept the minutes from last month.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I was here a second. All those in favor? Well, just me and Mel. Because Cindy was here.
Cindy was here.
All right, so we got 2-0 with
Well, if
3
Cindy was
abstentions.
here, she just stepped out for a
I
minute.
know, but she's not here for the vote. So.
Okay.
But we only need plurality. We don't need a
Plurality on minutes. 2 out of 3 is good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
2, 0, 3, and 1.
One absent.
One absent. Okay. So,
Yes.
meeting's over. Thank you.